Good evening. My name is Leah Cruzy. I am the chair of the DC Public Charter School Board. Thank you for joining us this evening. I would like to welcome my fellow board members and colleagues, including Vice Chair Jim Sandman, Secretary Shakura Adamafanian, Treasurer Chantel Wright, Carissa Stanley Beatty, Dwight Davis, and Nick Rodriguez. Before I turn it over to our Executive Director, Dr. Walker Davis, I wanted to highlight two items. First, Count Day happened earlier this month. That day is important as it sets out for the school year the number of enrolled students at each public charter school. That figure is important because it sets the funding that each school will have available for its instruction, programming, and more for this school year. Count Day is more than just a census taking, it's a partnership between families and schools, and it's also a citywide effort. And second, through a combined effort of DC PCSB and other agencies, nearly every student who attended Eagle Academy Public Charter School is now attending either a new school in the district, whether public charter or DCPS. I'd like to thank our partners at DCPS and all public charter schools for welcoming these families and their students and supporting them as they adjust to their new school community. And now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Walker Davis.
Thank you, Chair Cruzy. I kicked off this school year with two things. First, I have joined the social media world, which, as my kids might say, it was about time. While the number of followers on my official DCPCSB Instagram account has not quite caught up to Beyonce or Taylor Swift, it's still a good way to communicate about the important work that the public charter schools are doing to educate students in the district. Second, I have been making it a point to visit our public charter schools, particularly those that will be under charter review this school year, and I am pleased that our board members have joined me on many of these visits. We do this to celebrate students returning to the classroom for the 2024 to 2025 school year, meet the school's leadership, learn how the school community is acclimating to being back in the classroom, and engage with teachers and students. But more importantly, it gives us a firsthand look at the program ahead of the school's review. These discussions will take place during our board meetings starting in 2025. Tonight, there are two items on the public hearing agenda, one concerning Capitol Village Public Charter School and the other regarding Seed Public Charter School. Both of these items are here because of DCPCSB oversight and will merit a vote by the board this evening. For Capitol Village, the board will hear a staff recommendation to place the school on a financial corrective action plan, also referred to as an FCAP, which is an action that the board considered this summer for Eagle Academy Public Charter School. An FCAP is a serious step which is merited when the staff believes and the board determines there are serious considerations about the school's financial position and economic viability. Moreover, Capitol Village PCS is undergoing a 5-year review of its charter this school year. That discussion will be held again by the board in 2025. For Seed Public Charter School, the board will review staff recommendations to issue a notice of concern for failing to adhere to federal and local special education compliance regulations, and our policies. This is an important step in our charter oversight, which is part and parcel of quality authorizing. With that, I would like to turn it back over to you, Chair Cruzy, for the rest of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Walker Davis. At the beginning of every board meeting, the DC Public Charter School Board hears public testimony related to items on the agenda and listens for testimony for topics not related to agenda items. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak, and if you need to make a few additional points, please email your testimony for us to read at public.comment@dcpcsb.org. Public officials who sign up to testify will be allowed to speak for up to 5 minutes. The hand-raising feature has been disabled. As a reminder, all written public comment is available to the public on our website. If you would like to register to provide live testimony or submit a written comment to the board, you can find all testimony registration and submission information on our website under the Public Comment tab at dcpcsb.org. You can also submit your comments to public.comment@dcpcsb.org, or you can call our public comment line to leave a voicemail testimony at 202-328-2660 and select option 2. As we move through each speaker, Courtney, and Jonah, our Zoom hosts for the evening, will promote each speaker from the attendee pool and unmute individuals speaking. So it looks like we have 3 individuals who've signed up to speak this evening. And I'd like to begin by inviting Jason Mellon to come testify for the board. And Jason Mellon, you have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. It cut me off as I was transitioning. You want me to speak now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Um, I'm Dr. Jason Mellon. I'm speaking today about concerns related to CDC. First, I want to thank the board and staff for being very responsive to the concerns I've raised, both previously from me in the May meeting, and also from other stakeholders via the Community Complaint Office. Today, the board has before them a recommendation from staff about issuing a notice of concern for CDC regarding special education compliance and undocumented suspensions. I fully support this recommendation. In attachment 3, related to this notice of concern vote, CDC's board and leaders stated that the concerns I raised in May had, quote, no merit, yet it was clearly found by OSSI and PCSB staff that my claim not only had merit, but could be easily proven by data. In addition to this notice of concern today, I would like to ask the board and staff to continue and investigate 2 additional major concerns. First, there are major staffing issues creating an unsafe environment during the school day and during evening and overnight care. This was raised by an internal whistleblower at the June CDC board meeting, and was quickly dismissed and shut down by the board chair and foundation CEO. That senior leader has since left CDC, but concerns continue. I urge you to see for yourself and hold them accountable before yet another tragedy happens, like it did in 2018 when a student took her own life in the dorms during a time of inappropriate adult supervision. Second, there continue to be major violations of procurement policy, and I would ask the board to consider issuing a second notice of concern regarding financial mismanagement and failure to follow procurement policies. Despite CDC's assertion that they have done nothing wrong, I believe it will be clear when you have the data from school year 23-24 audits that there were major purchases made without appropriate RFPs, and in this current school year, there have been many other potential conflict of interest contracts that have exceeded the $1,000 threshold, including self-dealing contracts for the head of school and foundation CEO that have not been disclosed to PCSB or publicly voted on by their board. These concerns were raised internally by multiple staff already, but nothing has been done to correct it. Further, it should be noted that compliance with its procurement policy is a condition of SEED's recharter that the board made in January 2023, yet CDC continues to violate it. More must be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mellon. I'll next invite up Shavana Johnson. Okay. Ms. Shavana Johnson, you are next in the queue. If you are listening, make sure that you are on Zoom so that our Zoom host can promote you. And in the meantime, we'll give you a moment. In the meantime, we'll invite Rashida Woodard in the same situation. So Rashida Woodard, we'll give them another minute or so. Hopefully they're listening. If someone else is aware that they are hoping to speak tonight, perhaps notify them. PCSB team, just to confirm, anyone that signed up to testify did also submit testimony written? Will we otherwise? Okay, so we will make sure that we follow up with them by having registered to testify. We have their contact information. Okay. This will conclude the public comment portion of our agenda tonight. Next, we will discuss our planned public hearing items, and for that, I will yield the floor back to Dr. Walker Davis, Executive Director of the DC Public Charter School Board, to describe our progress toward fulfilling our excellent schools' enduring partnerships and effective organization priorities.
Thank you, Chair Cruzy, and good evening again, members of the board and our public. I am very excited for this agenda item, and that is to discuss our 2021 to 2024 strategic roadmap. If you can put the slides up, please. In 2021, our team embarked on a journey to develop a strategic plan, which we refer to as our 2021 to 2024 strategic roadmap. The strategic roadmap guides the board's work, aspirations, and efforts in three priority areas: excellent schools, enduring partnerships, and effective organization. Tonight, I will share updates on our progress over the last quarter, but mostly give highlights that span the last 3 years since launching the roadmap. Our roadmap launched during one of the most significant impacts on our community, COVID-19. It affected many of us, tested our faith, commitment, and ability to help each other. But it taught us that schools are more than just places to learn. They are the centers of our community, where hungry students get a meal, receive health care, have access to the internet, and feel nurtured and appreciated, and so much more. It showed us the value of working with families, school leaders, DCPS, city officials, community leaders, and government agencies. Next slide. Our strategic roadmap has three priorities: excellent schools, enduring partnerships, and effective organization. These priorities support the mission, and our mission builds on our vision and clearly identifies our purpose. This is rooted in the authority granted to us through the School Reform Act and our race, equity, diversity, and inclusion commitment. This is what guides our actions and represents an important evolution in the role, function, and purpose of DCPCSB. For each strategic area, we've established 3-year goals and metrics to measure our progress. The following slides show the goals for each strategic priority and our 3-year progress. Each year, we have shared our progress on our goals at a board meeting. We develop metrics that align with each goal, and these metrics ensure that we hold ourselves accountable and that our work is transparent and measurable. It is important to note before we get into the details regarding these priorities that they are slightly different than the ones reported in the performance management plan by the Office of the City Administrator. It is our hope to align our strategic priorities with the performance metrics in the future. Next slide. One thing to name here is that these goals were developed in 2021 to 2022, and midway through, we shifted our language from developing a new academic accountability framework to revising the frameworks within the accountability system. The revised accountability system, as many know, is now known as Aspire. Next slide. Here I'll discuss the goals under Excellent Schools. Before we start, it is important to discuss how we arrived at these goal determinations. A goal is met if 100% of the metrics are met or substantially met. A goal is substantially met if 75% to 99% of the metrics are met or substantially met. And finally, a goal is partially met if 50 to 74.9% of the metrics are met or substantially met. And I am pleased to report that 4 out of 5 goals, or 80% of the Excellent Schools priorities, were met. While we made significant progress here, we partially met metrics in some areas. We succeeded in revising process templates to align with our race, equity, diversity, and inclusion commitments, which we refer to as READY, but we did not fully meet the goal of establishing clear guidance for equitable oversight practices by July 2023. Additionally, our work on reviewing attendance and discipline data on a monthly basis continues, but we have yet to fully revise the attendance and truancy policy to align with the Aspire framework. Next slide. Enduring partnerships. Our focus on enduring partnerships has been essential to supporting DC students and public charter schools. First, we worked to develop and implement processes that authentically engage community stakeholders. Next, we prioritized communication with DC agencies and policymakers on issues affecting students and schools. Additionally, we also made it a priority to continue to effectively communicate the role and value of public charter schools, making sure that stakeholders understand their positive impact on education here in the district. And finally, we cultivated strong relationships with DC agencies and partner organizations to improve student outcomes. Next slide. In the enduring partnerships, I'm proud to report that we met 3 out of 4 goals, or 75% of our goals. While we conducted a survey with families to understand their perceptions about public charter schools, we were not able to fully launch a public information campaign. This work will continue as we move into our next phase of strategic planning. In lieu of a public information campaign, we opted to show the impact of individuals who work and students who attend public charter schools by launching multiple digital media campaigns on our social channels. We also deepened our connections with the DC Council, various DC agencies, and nonprofits that support public charter schools. Next slide. In effective organization, we set out to develop and implement systems, processes, and practices to hold our leadership, board, and staff accountable for delivering on this roadmap. We organized teams and roles to better balance workflows to meet our strategic priorities. And finally, we work to ensure that all staff have the resources and information they need to perform their job effectively, and that our systems are clear and easy to implement. Next slide. In the area of effective organization, I'm extremely proud to share that we met 100% of our goals. I'd like to highlight some of the key achievements and how we achieved them. We developed a tool that holds DC PCSB accountable to its strategic roadmap and priorities. We also organized our internal teams and their roles in a way that balances workflow and ensures that we meet those priorities. And lastly, we ensured that 100% of our board and staff members were trained on the enhanced public comment process. And by July 31st, 2024, 79% of our staff agreed that they had the resources, information, and institutional knowledge necessary to do their jobs effectively. Next slide. As we reflect on our progress, it's important to recognize both small and big wins along the way. Each of these stories of impact demonstrates the tangible outcomes of our efforts. I will share just a few with you. In year 1, next slide, please. Here are some key highlights from the first year of the strategic roadmap. We enhanced the qualitative site review to include a review of assignments of student work, and this gave us deeper insight into curriculum quality. Qualitative site reviews are a qualitative snapshot of an LEA's instructional quality. Additionally, we hosted a best practice sharing event for schools, providing them with an opportunity to connect, and learn from one another. In terms of enduring partnerships, we launched multiple digital campaigns to inform the public about the diverse charter school options available and principals and teachers who work in public charter schools. We also conducted focus groups and surveys to better understand family needs, which helped us to revise the charter application guidelines that are currently in place. And for effective organization, we published our ready commitments for greater transparency into our guiding principles, and we successfully launched this strategic roadmap, which has increased visibility into our long-term vision for the future. Next slide. Moving our family forward, we're now looking at year 2 achievements from the 2022 to 23 year. For excellent schools, we released the updated 2023 charter application guidelines, which explains the process by which applicants submit petitions and how DCPCSB will evaluate those applications. Under Enduring Partnerships, we developed a dedicated webpage for our advisory neighborhood commissioners, or webpage for advisory neighborhood ANCs to use to access information. We also supported the expansion of mental health services through a partnership with the Department of Behavioral Health. And as mentioned in year one, we continue to conduct focus groups and surveys to better understand parents' perspectives on public schooling options in DC. In effective organization, we provided ready-based training for all staff to ensure capacity building aligned with our mission, vision, and ready commitments. Furthermore, we revised our internal compensation process to better reflect those commitments. Next slide. And in our final year of the strategic roadmap, 2023 to 2024, we made our final strides in all areas. For excellent schools, we launched Aspire, which replaces the performance management framework and raises the bar for academic evaluation and school progress monitoring. In enduring partnerships, we gathered perspectives from parents and alumni to inform the Aspire accountability system, as well as our special education policies. We also enhanced our public comment process, making it more accessible and easier for individuals to share their input and perspectives on items open for public comment. And finally, in effective organization, we relocated to our new neighborhood that puts us in closer proximity to the students that we serve in the majority of our schools. Last slide. To conclude, we are very proud of the progress we've made over the last 3 years and recognize that there is still more to be done. As we look toward the future and begin preparing for the launch of our next roadmap, I want to thank this board, my leadership team, and the dedicated staff of the DC Public Charter School Board for the continued support to meet these goals outlined in our first ever strategic roadmap. Your feedback and participation in this process remains vital to our success. So I say thank you, and I look forward to working with each of you on the next strategic roadmap. Thank you, Chair Cruzy.
It has been a busy few years. Thank you, Dr. Walker Davis, and thank you, staff. We have our, excellent. So yes, we have one of our public commenters has come back. So we're going to rewind for a moment and invite back Ms. Rashida Woodard. And just Rashida. Okay, great. So you are being invited to be promoted. And
Hello.
all right, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me just pull up my notes. Okay, am I ready to go? All right, thank you. My name is Rashida Woodard, formerly Holman Jones. I'm a current school leader at CPCS, and I consider myself a whistleblower. I oversaw enrollment and attendance. I need to escalate my concerns to you about C's issue with transparency and accountability. As PCSB is aware, in 2022, there's a history of troubling data and complaints as it relates to exclusionary disciplinary processes with students with IEPs and 504. There was a pattern of non-compliance despite PCSB's best effort to support C. The most recent findings are all correct, and there are many more. Upon a change in leadership, I attempted to inform the new administration team members about PCSB and DC discipline guidance. I was ignored and eventually isolated as the administrative team attempted to clean the building of challenging students. The administrative team told specific staff to exclude me from email groups and suspension information as a means to go around enrollment policy. Many high-level leaders attempted to change our enrollment application, influence our application data, and create blocks for student entry. There was an effort to modify the number of students with IEPs and 504s that we received. In a public meeting, a high-level leader explained that the high number of IEPs and 504s and students on electronic monitoring devices was a result of poor marketing and enrollment strategy, along with sabotage by internal staff, judges, and social services workers. Our summer new student orientation identified students from certain schools on electronic monitoring devices and with specialized IEPs and 504s and attempted to counsel them out of seed. The real purpose of the orientation was to find out who the bad apples were and get them to unenroll before school started. Seed's leaders actually told a number of parents that their student couldn't attend in August, a major violation of the enrollment lottery. They withheld summer data from me, and again, when they realized that I was sticking to the policy, they omitted me. Unfortunately for them, parents continued to call me to voice their concerns. The suspensions of students, they removed students under the notices of investigations and did not provide updated paperwork or accurate meeting times, links, or student work. They would send students home via Uber or drop them off using the seed van to expedite the removal process. They would also tell parents, depending on the student, that they had to attend in person in order for their students to return. They did not have the proper MDR meetings for all students with disabilities in all cases. The goal was to assign level 5 infractions made by poorly trained staff and in some cases intimidate families to leave. They would modify the paperwork at a different time. I would strongly suggest a review of procurement policies as it relates to construction projects and other projects, but I am truly concerned with the process and policy and how they relate to students with disabilities in 504s. If I have any additional conversation I can have, I would welcome it. I can provide student information using USI numbers, parent contacts upon request. I have more than 10 staff members and 4 exit members that can substantiate my claims. I am more than willing to continue this conversation and hope SEED is able to improve its practices and offer free and appropriate education for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Woodard, for coming before us this evening. We'll be following up with the third person who registered to come in tonight. Okay. Board, next on our agenda is a hearing on a request to revise Breakthrough Montessori Public Charter Schools mission statement. I will now yield the floor for that to Bijan Lane, Sector Planning and Compliance Specialist, to introduce the proposal from Breakthrough Public Charter School. And I'd like to invite representatives from the school to provide remarks. Emily Hayden, Juliet Berg, Gabriel Movsesian.
Thank you, Chair Cruzy.
Bijan, can you turn up your volume just a little bit?
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Is that right? I think we can hear you very well. Welcome, Bijan.
Thank you, Chair Cruzy. Hello, my name is Bijan Lane. I am a specialist in the School Performance Department. Tonight, the board will hear from Breakthrough Montessori Public Charter School regarding its request to amend its charter agreement. The school seeks to revise its mission statement by specifying its target population and improving syntax. School representatives are here to answer your questions.
Good evening, Chair Cruzy and members of the Public Charter School Board. My name is Emily Hadeen. I have been with Breakthrough Montessori Public Charter School since it was founded, and I currently serve as the executive director, and I'm also the parent of 2 Breakthrough Montessori students. I have with me a member of my school leadership team, as well as 2 members of our Board of Trustees, so I'd invite them to introduce themselves briefly as well.
Hello, my name is Ina Okwawo. I am the Director of Operations at Breakthrough Montessori Public Charter School.
Hi, my name is Juliet Berg. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees and a parent.
Hello, my name is Gabriel Movsesian. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees and Treasurer of the board, and I'm a parent of a first grader at Breakthrough Montessori.
So as Bijan explained, we are here to discuss an amendment to our charter, and I do have a few screens, which are a few slides that I will share with us now. Okay, so when Breakthrough submitted its charter application to the Public Charter School Board in 2015, our mission statement was the following: to provide families in Washington, D.C. with a fully implemented public Montessori program that enables children to develop within themselves the power to shape their lives and the world around them. Our proposed change to the mission is to introduce the word diverse in front of families to specify that our target population is diverse families in Washington, D.C. And we have switched the word program to education to more explicitly communicate that we are a school. I'll talk a little bit about why we are proposing these changes, but first I wanted to share with the members of the Public Charter School Board the steps Breakthrough took to reach this point. So during the 22-23 school year, Breakthrough undertook a full year-long process of strategic alignment. So we saw this as the precursor to strategic planning. And this was an opportunity for our school community, all stakeholders, to reflect deeply on the foundational ethos of our school, our strengths, our areas for growth, and how we really wanted to define our community moving forward. This was a lengthy process that took the entirety of the school year. It involved 32 in-depth stakeholder interviews. So these are interviews with family representatives, faculty representatives, and board members that lasted at least 45 minutes. We then also looked really closely at school climate and culture data provided by the Insight Survey, which our school conducts twice a year in the fall and the spring. We also conducted an electronic family survey. So every year we do an annual family survey. And then in 22-23, we did an additional family survey that really drilled into the mission, the vision, and the priorities of the school and where our families wanted to see us grow. We conducted a Board of Trustees focus group. We had a staff town hall, and we had a staff survey. So there was a lot of community input and a lot of different formats from all stakeholders. Then this brought us to the 23-24 school year, where we took all of the rich qualitative and quantitative data we collected during strategic alignment to embark on the process of strategic planning. So that really began in the summer of 23, when our Board of Trustees had a strategic planning retreat. And it was at that meeting that the proposed changes to the mission statement were really discussed and probed in depth. The strategic planning process continued through the fall, and then in February 8th, 2024, our Board of Trustees voted to approve our strategic plan, which included the revised mission statement that we're bringing before you this evening. Then we wrapped up the 23-24 school year, and then we started the 24-25 school year. And the first thing we did this school year was to share the proposed mission statement revision with both our staff and our families. So right away, when our staff returned for our 2 weeks of in-service before the start of the school year, we presented the current mission statement as well as the proposed revision, heard their feedback. Staff were generally supportive. A lot of staff said that they appreciated the specification of our target population because the school has long cultivated a commitment to building a diverse, inclusive and welcoming school community, and they really liked seeing that made explicit in our mission statement. Then a couple of weeks later, we introduced the revised mission statement to our parent community as well. And there we saw very little feedback, kind of a general approval of the mission statement. Families did not feel that the changes were, reflected a tweaking and an adjustment of the mission statement, but the core ethos of who we are as a public Montessori school that believes in the transformative power of Montessori education remained the same. So again, just to go back to these mission statement revisions, they are 2 proposed revisions. The first is to specify our target population by changing the word families to diverse families. And our staff and our community feels like this explicitly articulates Breakthrough's longstanding commitment to cultivating an intentionally diverse community of staff, families, and students. This commitment is made very clear in our charter application going back to 2015 and is something that has been nurtured by the staff ever since through the development of our school's statement of values and many other initiatives to really prioritize and focus the creation of a diverse Montessori learning community. And then the second change is a syntax change. We wanted to switch the word program to education because we are a public school and we want members of the public who may be visiting our website, maybe not in DC, but just curious. We just want it to be very clear that we are first and foremost a school, and what we are providing is education. So I will stop there, but I would love to ask both Juliet and Gabriel to share any reflections they have to share with the board about this process of strategic alignment and mission revision.
Sure, I can start. I was a part of the process for the strategic alignment and the revision of the mission statement. I think that it's important for the word diverse to be in the mission statement, given that that serving diverse students is part of the ethos of Breakthrough. Breakthrough works hard to support and engage diverse families and staff. And I'm glad that word can be included in the mission statement. I wanted to reemphasize what Emily said, which is the strategic alignment process and revision of the mission statement was a highly collaborative process that included the board, staff, and families. During several board meetings, we heard about feedback that Emily shared from the surveys, from parents, from staff, and I feel I myself was interviewed as part of that process, and the board met as well to go over the mission statement. So I feel confident that the mission statement, that this revision is inclusive of the voices of the school community.
And my comment is short. I just wanted to note that the changes to the mission statement, I feel, a real marker of how Breakthrough makes sure that its public-facing statements align with the actual performance and progress that the school has made and continues to make. And the wording of it really clarifies the who, the how, the why of what is expected in a mission statement. So in sum, the changes may seem very small, but it's a very significant demonstration of the school's commitment and attention to detail and the precise approach in which we try to communicate with our audience and families and the community.
Thank you so much, Juliet and Gabriel. And I believe that we are now available for any questions from the school board.
Thank you, Breakthrough School Community, for coming before us tonight. I'm going to open it up to my fellow board members first before I jump in with questions.
Good evening. Thank you for your presentation. I want to zoom in, no pun intended, specifically on the inclusion of the word diverse. And given that this has been your longstanding approach in how you have served families, what was the purpose specifically of adding that word? And do you think it has any potential unintended consequences of excluding families who may not see themselves in that word and the inclusion of that word now in your mission?
Thank you. This question definitely came up during the board's strategic alignment retreat in July of, I think it was 2023. We definitely wanted to be careful and aware that the words that we were including in our mission statements were welcoming, were inclusive, were accurate, and where, there were the members of the Board of Trustees had a really robust conversation and debate about it. And at the end, all members of the trustees agreed that we do want to include this word. Going back to the school's charter application, our charter application recognized that we, as a public Montessori school, we are part of a movement that is trying to change kind of the longstanding history and trajectory of Montessori education in the United States. The overwhelming majority of Montessori schools in the United States are independent tuition charging institutions, and Breakthrough is fiercely proud, and we have been fiercely proud from the very beginning, to be a public school. And focus groups conducted with our staff reveal that the fact that we are a public school that has faculty from different communities, different walks of life, different racial and ethnic identities, different gender identities, et cetera, as well as students and families. That has been like a real, that has been something that has brought faculty to our school, and has been something that has brought families to our school. So families and staff were already coming for that, even though it wasn't explicitly stated in our mission. And we felt that by stating it in our mission, we were, as Gabriel said, being explicit with who we are, what we value, and how we operate. As to if there's a concern that that people may feel left out or unincluded with this word, that was a big reason why we did bring it to the staff at the beginning of this school year, as well as to the families. So even before submitting our charter application, our charter amendment application to the Public Charter School Board, we really kind of socialize this mission statement with our faculty and staff. The faculty and staff of Breakthrough Montessori have never shied away from really probing, discussing, speaking their mind. There's a huge level of investment and affiliation with our mission statement. Faculty and staff feel very strongly about it. And so I knew I could trust them to raise any concerns if they had any. Quite the contrary, the faculty said, like, yes, this does speak to who we are and who we are as a school. So I think we did have those conversations. I think the board reflected deeply. We brought it to faculty and families, and overall, it felt like this was the appropriate way to capture our school community and share it with the broader community.
So can you talk to us a little bit about the strategies that you use to ensure that you are indeed diverse and pulling from all walks of life within the city, all areas within the city?
Yep, absolutely. And this is something I actually, before I stepped into the role of executive director, I was in the role of director of engagement. So I was kind of there at the beginning years when the school built some of these routines, and it's been really great to see how they've expanded ever since. But every year, well before the lottery opens, and throughout the lottery season, we make it a point to connect with families across the district. We have open houses at our facility, but we have also gone out to public libraries across the city, public events across the city, connecting with different childcare providers, nonprofit organizations, businesses that are serving parents of young children, to talk about our school, to put it out there, explain what Montessori education is, and engage families in conversations about whether or not it's something they're interested for their child. We're also very proactive about fostering a multilingual community and ensuring interpretation services and translation services. So our information about our school is going out in different languages, and then we are providing simultaneous interpretation in the languages of our families and our neighbors as needed. We have a dedicated position to equity engagement. That individual is working 12 months a year to make sure that we have really, really strong family engagement and family communication practices, both with families who are enrolled, as well as reaching out and connecting with potential families who may be interested in enrolling.
Secretary.
Thank you. Thank you, Breakthrough team, for your presentation this evening. Really quick, You're proposing this mission change as part of a recently completed strategic plan, but what other changes can we expect as a result of the strategic plan?
So the strategic plan has, there are 4 goals. Each of the goals has metrics. And the goals are focused on academic outcomes, particularly in mathematics. The next one is about strengthening social, emotional, and special education policies and practices and quality of services. And then the third and fourth goals, and board members help me out if I'm not getting them in the exact order. I think our board knows the plan very well in as well. The other plans are about strengthening board governance and governance practices. And then finally, about staff retention and developing the executive director.
And just so I'm keeping track, and the strategic plan is complete. You all have finished the plan, or is it still in progress?
It is complete, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Board Member Davis.
Good evening. My question is basically, what was it in the data that led you to make these revisions? Was it something that you saw as you engaged, looking forward in your strategic plan? I'm just interested to know, what was it about the data? What was it in the data that signaled to you and the board that, hey, we need to make these revisions to our mission?
Yes, and I think that that's mostly with respect to the inclusion of the word diverse. I think the second revision, there wasn't necessarily anything in the data. It was just looking at it and thinking that from a position of syntax, the word education is clearer than program. But what came out in the data, I think in general, that whole strategic alignment process, all of the stakeholder interviews, the surveys, the town halls, overwhelmingly showed like general support for the mission of Breakthrough. And it yielded the insight that we had already, it kind of confirmed the insight that we had already known for some time, is that the mission really brought people to Breakthrough and helps keep people at Breakthrough. And, working in a public school can have its challenges, absolutely, but our faculty and staff feel inspired and buoyed by the school's deep and authentic commitment to broadening access to Montessori education and to offering Montessori instruction in the public school sector. So our strategic alignment process, it yielded a lot of qualitative data that show that staff and families really value the mission, but they also really value the equity focus of the organization. That was something that came up a lot. Families and staff naming that they appreciated a diverse faculty, that they appreciated the school's work on culturally responsive pedagogy, that they appreciated the school's cultivating dialogue around educators and parents about equity in education. And that it was kind of like looking at, it's not that the data said, wow, something's wrong with the mission, we need to change it. But rather it said, people are really supportive of the mission, and something they're saying about the school repeatedly is not necessarily made explicit in the mission. So how can we, like as Gabriel has said, make sure that the mission also really reflects the deep values of those community members who are building this school up?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, based on your interviews and the data that you gathered, you wanted to lift up what you heard and make sure it was reflected in the mission. So how does that relate to, is that related to some of your other key areas like staff retention, SEL practices and services? Were those levers also things that were seen in the data?
Yeah, all of our strategic goals, like the result of the resulting strategic plan, which not only proposes the new mission statement, but also spells out the strategic goals and the associated metrics, all of those goals came out of the strategic alignment process and the data that was collected during that process.
Board Member Stanley Beatty, I think you may have a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair Cruzy. I have a follow-up question. I think I'm thinking along the same lines as Board Member Davis. I want to talk a little bit more about the diversity piece in your mission. You talked about the teacher and educator population and sort of how you guys are excited about the diversity that you're experiencing there. And it sounds like, I was trying to think in my head, it sounds like the addition of the word or the incorporation of the word is both reflectionary of where you already are and also forward looking as to where you want to go. It sounds like it's a combination of both. Could you lift up and sort of name also the diversity as it relates to your student population? Do you have students that come from across the city, from across all 8 wards? Are they diverse in other sort of rich ways that adds to the obviously the importance and the richness of your curriculum? I would love to hear you lift up the student population and the diversity that you experience there.
Absolutely. I'll start that off, but our Director of Operations, Ino Okwawo, is also on the call. And Ino, I would love for you to jump in after, because I know you kind of live in all of this student enrollment and student information. But I'll kick us off and share that Breakthrough does pull students from all 8 wards of Washington, D.C. So we have students that literally cross the street from their front door to ours, and we have students that have a substantial commute across the city each day to reach us. We do have a diversity of racial identities. A number of years ago, this might have been pre-pandemic, that Breakthrough was identified as one of the most racially and ethnically diverse schools in the District of Columbia, or among the public charter schools. And so we do have usually, depending on the year, we have between like 39 and 40 to 41% of students identifying as white. That same percentage of students, between 39 and 40 to 41% of students identifying as Black or African American. We usually have a smaller percentage, maybe 12 to 15% identifying as Hispanic Latinx, and between 5 to 7% identifying as Asian. One thing that I'm immensely proud of is that Breakthrough backfills at all grades. I know that for many schools that's par for the course, but many Montessori schools do not. They limit backfilling in older grades. But if we have seats in 4th and 5th and 6th grade, we put them on the lottery. And if there's a family in the city that wants to join our community, they are welcomed with open arms to do so. We have a diverse community of speakers of many different languages. I think might have the most up-to-date data, but last time I checked, we did have speakers in the high teens, early low 20s numbers of home languages, and that type of thing is included in the lessons. One thing that Breakthrough does each year that I really enjoy is we have each month we kind of elevate and celebrate a different sub-community within our school community. And for that, we always invite parents to come in and give classroom presentations on cultural backgrounds, sharing cultural artifacts, music, food, whatever have you, present an important historical individual from their community. And every month we have parents who are willing to come in and share. And I think that speaks to not just the diversity of identities, but also the fact that families are really in it with us, this idea of building a diverse school community and centering the diversity of identities. So I know I gave a lot of kind of vague ranges. I'm going to turn it over to Ino, who probably has the most up-to-date numbers.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, a lot of what Emily said was particularly what I was going to also mention. Looking at our data, we do pull from all 8 wards. The top wards are wards 4, 5, and 8. But yeah, all students do come from all 8 wards in DC. And along with our staff, just to piggyback off what Emily said, we have such a healthy society of different cultures at Breakthrough, with our monthly celebrations and with teachers sharing where they're from, with their culture and again with the families also. And also with the diversity, the students, they're able to develop like empathy and understanding, and they respect others in the classroom. Um, from the student sharing and families coming in to share. And it's just a great educational experience for the students and the families at Breakthrough.
Thank you for all of this. I want to acknowledge, I appreciate the conversation tonight and board member Secretary Adama Fadian's question about what else we may expect from the strategic plan. I appreciated hearing about the focus, the board's attention on and focus to academic outcomes and where there may be opportunities, there are opportunities for growth. As a city, we don't see learning outcomes where they need to be. It's important also to hear that board governance is top of mind for this school because of course the board holds the charter. So knowing that the board is paying attention to the academic data and paying attention to what good governance looks like. I appreciate that. So we will look forward to seeing this on the agenda next month. Is that right? November board meeting? Thank you, Breakthrough team.
Thank you very much.
Board members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Board members, that concludes the public hearing portion of the agenda, and I will now invite a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I move to approve the October 28th, 2024 board meeting agenda.
A second.
Thank you. Secretary Adama Fadian, would you please take a roll call vote?
Thank you. Chair Cruzy,
Aye. Here.
Vice Chairman Sandman,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez,
Aye.
Board Member Davis,
Aye.
and I am an aye.
Thank you.
Oh, Lord, I'm so sorry. Board Treasurer Wright, my apologies. Aye, I'm so sorry.
Right,
Okay.
we have full attendance tonight. Thank you. All right, I'm now going to yield the floor to Will Henderson, Chief Operating Officer, to introduce the proposal and recommendation regarding Capital Village Public Charter School. And I'd also like to invite representatives from that school to provide remarks. Monica Green, Latoya Tolbert. Welcome up.
You might see me from a couple of vantage points. Good evening. I'm Will Henderson, Chief Operating Officer at DC Public Charter School Board. Tonight, DC PCSB staff recommends the board approve a financial corrective action plan, also referred to as an FCAP, for Capital Village Public Charter School. This recommendation aligns with our strategic priorities of maintaining excellent schools and effective organization. Capital Village Public Charter School opened in fiscal year 2021 and has struggled with meeting enrollment targets, enrolling less students than their charter application projected. At the same time, the school's operating expenses have increased at a faster rate than revenues, leading to a concerning erosion of their cash reserves. The school operates from an oversized facility that is not aligned with its enrollment levels, further exacerbating these high occupancy costs. By FY23, their financial situation has worsened to the point where the school was placed on our financial monitoring list due to low cash reserves and negative financial margins. The latest forecasts for FY25 indicate a slight improvement with a projected cash balance of 30 days, but the financial health remains precarious. Key indicators, including liquidity and sustainability, show that while the school is not expected to run out of funds immediately, it faces ongoing risks due to cumulative operating deficits and reduced financial support from previous COVID-19 relief funding and ongoing low enrollment. To address these issues, the school is implementing various cost-saving measures, including staff changes, hiring freezes, and negotiating rent reductions. DC PCSB staff has outlined specific targets in the FCAP aimed at enhancing the school's financial health through FY28. Compliance with these targets will be closely monitored with biweekly reporting to DC PCSB staff and quarterly reports to the DC PCSB Finance Committee. Failure to meet the FCAP requirements could lead to staff recommending the initiation of the charter revocation process, underscoring the urgency of the situation and the need for corrective action. As Dr. Walker Davis said, an FCAP is a serious step which is merited when DC PCSB staff believes and the board determines that there are serious concerns about the school's financial position and economic viability. School representatives are here to answer the board's questions and then introduce themselves.
Hello, should I be introducing myself at this time?
Please do. Welcome.
Welcome, thank you. Hello, board. My name is Monica Green. I'm the founder, executive director, and head of school at Capitol Village. And I originally had my board chair attending. She's with her family, and so I invited my secretary to join in. Courtney, do you want to say hello?
Hi, I'm Courtney Kozlowski. I'm the secretary of the board.
So while Courtney won't be able to give as much info as our charter board, she'll be able to speak to how the board and I have been working together on this issue.
Great. Thank you. I know this can be a difficult time of night for families. Will, is it back to you? Is there a presentation now, or should we jump into questions from the board?
You can jump into questions.
We're kind of settling in on what the right Zoom screen is going to be for us. I think we want to be able to see the Capitol Village kind of gallery. There we go. Thank you. Vice Chair Salmon, we'll kick it off.
I actually have a question for Will. Your materials for the board indicate that staff will be reporting to the Finance Committee on a quarterly basis on the school's compliance with the fiscal corrective action plan. I'm concerned that quarterly might not be frequently enough, depending on what you find out through the bi-weekly reports you'll be getting from the school. At a minimum, I think it should be at least quarterly. But I would encourage the staff to report as soon as possible after any bi-weekly report raises a red flag. This is a very tenuous situation as I see it. The cash flow situation is troubling. And I wouldn't want you to think that you need to wait until a quarterly meeting of the Finance Committee to bring something to the attention of the committee. And I'd also ask that the Finance Committee elevate concerning information to the board, the full board.
Thank you, Board Member Salmon. Absolutely. The implication was certainly at least quarterly. We have quarterly touch points at the very least, and there are several other opportunities for us to report out on Capitol Village's financial position as much or more than is necessary, so that not just the Finance Committee is read into the room, but the entire board. Absolutely.
My request would be that you err on the side of over-reporting.
Yep. Noted. Thank you.
Chair Rodriguez. I'm sorry, Board Member Rodriguez.
You're promoting me, I see. Hi there, Capitol Village team. I think maybe I'll just kick us off with I think a very simple question, which is, I think as Vice Chair Salmon has said, it is a tough situation. So I'd love to just hear in your words, how do you all think you got here into this situation, and how confident are you in your ability to get out of it?
Thank you for that question. We as a school opening in 2022, we have, as a small school, we made a decision to be a very small school. Our goal in that is to be able to serve students in a way that is not often served in public education with a small environment, being able to get to know every student, get to know every family, multiple teachers in a classroom, really being able to serve students in a different capacity than it had been done before, especially in middle school. In our community engagement, when we were starting Capitol Village, what our family said to us was that they really wanted a close, nurturing environment. And they also wanted students to not feel like a number. And they wanted their students, especially students who had not been successful in traditional schools, to be able to be successful in a smaller, more hands-on environment. So we made choices. And so we knew that, it is going to be difficult to be able to, manage a smaller environment. We had a plan to enroll about 90 students in our first year. And then COVID hit. And so I really think that was something that affected our ability to fill seats in the first year. And we adjusted our sort of our strategy as we went through the first 2 years of our operation during COVID. We had a smaller enrollment than we thought. And then when the second year came, we also decided to sort of not try to double, right away, in order to, be able to support our students with the in and out and all of that happened in that second year. I think that enrollment trends nationally, we all are aware of those things after COVID. Enrollment trends nationally as well as within the district is something that we are all working to trying to figure out what to do about. And this is what we're dealing with here. So our enrollment has always been something that we have had a challenge with. What we did, I'm sure you will talk a little bit more about like what I'm doing to support increased enrollment moving forward. But, we had to make sure this year that we put an investment into like an enrollment team so that we can, be in a better place next year. I will say our facilities, we'll talk about that. Our facilities is a really expensive building. We chose that building because when we were opening, we needed a building, we needed a space. I know we all know about facilities in the city. And we wanted to make sure that we had a facility that we could stay in, that we wouldn't have to, like some of our counterparts had to look for another space in the next 2-3 years. And that space was available to us, and we were able to get a 15-year lease so that we've had a stable space. Of course, we didn't know that we would have the issues with enrollment, with COVID, with et cetera, prior to getting the space. But, that was a choice that we made to make sure that we had a building to begin our school, and to make sure that students had, families were able to know where we're going to be in time. So those two things, the enrollment trends and the facilities costs, which of course they go up, as time goes on, have, put us in a challenging position. I will say though that, when you're looking at the numbers, you see a decrease, a drop off, in our financial status after a lot of funding, went away for COVID, but also just as a newer school, you have more funding in the beginning, first 3 years, and then that funding kind of goes away. And so you can see the dip in our enrollment, but then you can see that our plan this year, our budget has us coming back, growing and making progress back to over 30 days of cash based on, the things that we had to make tough choices over the summer, for staffing, as well as some of our programmatic cuts, just working with partners and getting things that are more reasonable. So yes, our cash flow was an issue last year. We didn't run out of cash. We made our payroll. We did what we had to do. But this year, you can see that there's already improvements, plans to, attend to certain additional metrics that the FCAP talks about. And so I feel confident that with this support from the board, we'll be able to get right-sized and get back on track.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Green.
Mhm.
I'd like to, I think it's really important that we understand the steps of what our review is here. And I'm going to ask Will to walk us through and for us to have the chance to ask some clarifying questions as needed, what the kind of steps of this FCAP are, what they involve, how they're sequenced, and what the time frame is here.
Thanks, Chairperson Cruzy. Happy to share this information. I believe you'll be able to see on the screen that our viewers can see on the screen a timeline of what has been going on at Capitol Village and DCPCSB's role in navigating, monitoring, and providing oversight for this LEA. The Capitol Village was issued a charter on July 1st in 2020, and we began, as with all of our LEAs, typical oversight practices. We review quarterly financials and schools submit an annual budget that goes for all of the schools that we that are in the sector. Leading post their charter over the course of time, we began having growing concerns about them and watched their movements even more closely. In particular, we had some concerns around their marginal days of cash on hand, and their enrollment was not meeting the targets laid out in their charter. In March of 2023, as we looked at their FY23 Q2 financials, we placed Capitol Village on our monitoring list, which is a short list of LEAs where we monitor their financial movements at a monthly basis. So we've increased our scrutiny when they become formally on our monitoring list here. There were several key financial indicators that led us to have our concerns move them to the monitoring list. In January of 2024, when we received and reviewed the LEA's FY23 audited financials, our concerns elevated. The key financial indicators continued to worsen. There were several additional ones and beyond those that we had already taken note of. And Capitol Village staff shared a plan. So on the screen here, where it says elevating concerns, there's several items in that time frame between February and April that explain why our concerns continue to elevate. In April, the school shared their plans to increase enrollment and also sublet a facility. The staff's actions continued to scrutinize these financials, and we began asking ad hoc questions at a more frequent basis regarding the concerns, and Capitol Village was responsive to those questions. In May, in the period starting in May of 2024, going through the summer through July of 2024, we determined that we would begin the process of recommending an FCAP for this LEA. It's important to note that is a segment in time all to itself. There are several indicators that led us to make this decision, and that are listed here on the screen. We began routinely meeting with the LEA and planning for the FCAP that you all have received and are reviewing tonight. And we included Capitol Village's board in this communication in June. So the planning work, while DCPCSB makes the decisions, or staff make the decision to recommend the FCAP to the board, it is designed to be a collaborative one to support the school to identify financial measures that the school can achieve to get themselves onto financial footing, healthy financial footing in a time that is articulated in the FCAP itself. We began developing the FCAP, which is another season in and of itself, after the EOM meeting, and we notified both the board and the LEA of the intention to recommend an FCAP. There are several items, again, noted here that have contributed to the content that are as listed in the FCAP. So that gets you on the screen. You can see that most of the left arrows are in the blue section. We are here at the beginning of the gray section, which is October 2024, where we are presenting this FCAP to the board. If the board votes to approve an FCAP, the far right column in the gray is future oriented action, where we would continue to strengthen the monitoring and oversight work through the content voted upon, in theory, if that's what happens tonight, identified in the FCAP.
Thank you for walking us through this. And it's very clear that quite a bit has been done. The staff have been monitoring for some time. This internal watch is not, it applies to the entire sector. And right now we're just talking about Capitol Village.
Correct.
And just to clarify, our shorthand EOM stands for Effective Organization Meeting, and that formerly was called a board-to-board meeting. As we've mentioned during most board meetings, charter school boards, LEA boards, actually hold the charter, and those are the opportunities for those boards together with their staff to meet together with members of our board for various purposes. In this case, it's because something has come to our attention that we want to make sure that their board and staff are aware of. Thank you for that. And I think to Vice Chair Sandman's question earlier, it looks like the frequency of correspondence is at least bi-weekly of updated information on the financial status of the school.
Between staff and the LEA, yes, at least bi-weekly.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have additional questions from other board members. Yes. Excuse me.
So, Ms. Green, I have a few questions for you and your staff. I want to turn our attention to the actual FCAP. So you've worked with staff here on the FCAP. I will assume that you understand the targets that they've put in front of you, and based on a budget that you've produced and are probably fine tuning back and forth with staff here, you're comfortable that you're going to be able to meet those targets. I am concerned, and so I want you to talk to me clearly about which of the pathways you've identified and spoken to staff about, which of those pathways you think are actually viable for you to be able to achieve to meet these targets given where you are.
Thank you for that question. I also want to thank the staff. Your staff has been very, very helpful in this process, just as supporting in a collaborative fashion to make sure that myself and the board are really clear on these metrics and what is needed. And so I definitely appreciate that. So in the FCAP, you can already see that there are things that we've done already. And actually also in the overview, we've already made the unfortunate, staffing cuts that we had to make in order to be able to meet these metrics. I am also working with our landlord very closely in order to reduce our occupancy costs, not just in the future, but also this year, so that we can make sure that we have the ability to meet these metrics. And then, of course, we are also working very closely with our board and also some of our staff, working on development, working on partnerships, working on grants, and anything else that we can help to further create a cushion for our school.
Okay, so let's again, I want to be clear about what you've done. So what you've already done, you said, is staffing cuts. So that has already happened. So those cuts are reflective, Will, in the budget that we already have.
Yes, that's the revised budget.
The revised budget. Okay, so that's reflective in the information that we already have. As it relates to the occupancy costs, talk to me about your work there. Talk to me about the timing. Talk to me about the specific cost and the decrease in occupancy expense you expect to achieve.
Okay.
And I'll tell you where I'm going with this. When I look at your financials since FY 2021, you talk about enrollment being a struggle, and obviously you all have been underneath what you had targeted from the very beginning. What I see is a little bit different. You've actually increased your enrollment, although it probably never hit your target. You've increased since 2021 to now, you're at 106. So there's been an increase in enrollment. What I think is causing a challenge here, which would make sense to me intuitively, is that you lost your line of credit. Your line of credit is probably is that how you were sort of backfilling your expenses? Didn't you have a line of credit?
We had a line of credit in our founding year while we were still building our building.
Okay.
We were using the line of credit for construction costs just as the timing, we needed to make sure we had money before we actually had a per pupil allotment. We did not use or rely on a line of credit since then.
Since 2021.
Since our first year. We paid it back after that first year.
Okay, so then there was a note in our material that their line of credit was closed, Will?
We had attempted last year in order to further have cushion and towards the end of the year, we attempted to get a new line of credit.
Okay.
But because of the financial situation and also we were a little, I think that the bank was worried about the ERC, whether we were going to get it or not. They declined the application, but we did not lose any funding.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying that, because I was confused about that. Okay, so then so you had a line of credit in terms of your building, but then there's been nothing additional since then.
That's correct.
Okay, so then talk to me. So you were going to go through the occupancy cost. So talk to us about where you are with that in terms of your negotiations with your landlord, because you all are overhoused.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I spoke to the landlord earlier in the year, as a result of just the conversation with your team, knowing that the FCAP was asking that we were to reduce occupancy costs by 2026, I spoke to the landlord I'm sorry, let me go backwards. Last year, we made the decision that we were going to try to get out of the building. We had a lead from our former broker of a building that was more economically feasible for us. And we decided to start trying to sublease the building. So since then, both my team, my brokerage team, and the landlord's team has been facilitating schools and other organizations coming through the building to see if someone would be interested in subleasing the building. That is something that is still going on. We had an organization in the building last week. So that is something that is an ongoing effort. If we can sublet either half of or some of the building or all of the building, that is something that we, had started doing last year. But then when we were unable to do it in time enough for the deadlines that are set by the charter board and also by, my school DC, we paused the effort until this year, looking forward into next year. But now what we're doing with the landlord is we're looking to bring down the number of square footage that we are occupying in the building. And that was something that was discussed with the landlord. It was actually something that he initiated in order to be able to facilitate us staying in the building, but at a size that is more effective for the number of students that we have. So that is something that we're working on. Our landlord is most comfortable with that being something that we do next fiscal year. The last time that we spoke, he said that he could provide a lease amendment in the next, he didn't give me a time, but he's soon, so that the board can see the progress of this negotiation. My comment to him has always been that this FCAP and our bringing down our occupancy expenses is very important to us being in the building next year. And so, he is motivated to keep us in the building and is motivated to support us. Another avenue that I had asked him to get his board's approval is if we cannot get the square footage deal done now this fiscal year, that we would ask for an additional rent deferment and putting that rent somewhere else in, oh, I'm sorry, an additional rent deferment that I've had to ask them for that before. And that has been something that he has agreed to. So at this point, the last time that we spoke, he was curious as to what the FCAP metrics were and what kind of like action that he needed to take and when. So I had that conversation with him, and I'm just at this point, he has it with his team, with his board. I do expect for him to do one of the other options because I've made it clear to him that if we don't bring down these expenses this year, that we will have a difficulty being in the building next year. So he is waiting on his board's approval.
Okay, yeah, so I'll be careful because I don't want to sort of breach fiduciary responsibility here. The rent deferment is probably less preferable because that still holds you obligated for the rent.
This is
But I'm
true.
sure you understand that. Yeah, the rent
Yes.
deferment is less preferable because that doesn't really solve the problem.
It doesn't. And what we've expressed to him, he actually has like a very similar table that is what is in here in the FCAP. So he can see the timelines, he can see what we need to be doing as far as our financial bottom line for each of the years. So he knows that it's not going to be something that like I'm going to be able to tackle into next year. In addition, the square footage is something that is definitely feasible for us. We've already worked up the mock-up of how we would do it in order to provide a space that is usable for another organization while, being safe and secure for students. We've already done that. And it also is an option that would allow us to be in the building longer, which is also in his best interest.
And when you talk about that, you're talking about if you're able to sublease your space.
No, I'm saying that we will occupy less of the building.
Yes.
And then he can determine how he wants to use that space.
Not under a sublease, but essentially he would allow you to break your lease because right now you're leasing X amount of square footage. So what you're saying is it sounds like there's multiple different conversations you're having. Either you'll do this rent deferment, which is not preferable, or you'll be able to reduce your occupancy expense where he lets you occupy less of the building, and then he'll have the rest of the building to market at his discretion, is what you're saying.
And also, he also is in agreement if we are able to find a sublessor for the whole building for us to move somewhere else. So all three of those options are things that he and I have spoke about.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask you a pointed question. So of those three options, none of those are easy. So if none of that happens, looking at your targets for the FCAP, how do you get there? Because I heard you mention that you're on track to be at 30 days cash on hand, which is an improvement from where you closed out at 2024, but it doesn't get you to your target. And landlord negotiations are tough. They're tough in any market. They're particularly tough in this market. And I can tell you all the reasons why in terms of economies, and it's an election and interest rates didn't go where we thought they were going to go when the Fed cut. So what are you going to do if those negotiations do not prove fruitful? How do you meet your targets?
Yes, thank you. Definitely landlord negotiations are not easy. I am fully leveraging the fact that it's easier to maintain a tenant than to fill a building again. The budget is conservative. It doesn't have any of some of the other funds that are a little bit less sure, like the ERC and all those things. So 137,000, that is a result of what we are planning to do with the landlord, which is current budget is reflecting the reduction of square footage in the building. And if that 137,000 is not able to be realized, then I will have to just make programmatic cuts as I've done in previous years. And so I would do what I have to do to make sure we're able to meet those metrics.
Okay. I am concerned. I'm concerned. Treasurer, right?
Hi, Capital Village. So Monica, I have a question for you, but then I really want to also talk to your board. So my first question to you is, how have these programmatic and staffing changes actually impacted the quality of programming you're actually offering students?
Well, so far, we have not made any cuts to the classroom. We have been able to make strategic cuts that do not affect the students' like instructional experience. I will say that anytime we have to lose any member of any of our team, it affects everyone. It affects, the students, it affects families, it affects the staff. So no losses, not a loss. But our intent was to make sure that our students' instructional experience remains as much as possible the same. So we've made cuts to areas outside of the classroom. And also what we've done is we partner with organizations to provide services for less money or for no money that we might have otherwise hired someone for. So, counseling services that we've partnered with Department of Health for, those kinds of things. We have tutors that are free that we're able to bring in. And we are continuing to we're continuing to seek out those opportunities as well. So where one position has been lost, we were able to find and replace a similar service from another organization. So it is tough. It's not anything easy, but students their teaching experience in their classrooms, that has been our number one focus, and we've been able to, at this point, be able to keep that similar.
So I want to push and understand a little more there. So you're already a really small school. What is the current enrollment?
We have 106 right now, or
From
103 right now.
5 to 8?
Oh, right
Okay.
now it's 6 to 8.
6 to 8, okay. And you're saying that you have not had to make instructional or classroom cuts. They've been like
That's
what,
correct.
deans? Like, tell me some of the,
Yes. Well, I will spare some of the specifics, but yes, Dean is a good example of a cut that we have made.
okay, okay. So, and you're saying that has not impacted your population in terms of the quality of programming that they're getting?
That's not what I'm saying. Definitely when you lose anyone, it is an impact to the community. But we've made a decision not to, at this point, do any classroom cuts so that we could continue the instructional quality.
Okay. So I want to talk to Courtney. I recognize you're not the chair, but I want to understand what the board's understanding of Capital Village's financial state looks like, and how have you all been supporting the Capital Village team?
Yeah, I'll do my best. So we've been talking about finances at every board meeting since this has become an issue. Even before, we've been closely involved with finances throughout. Monica keeps us appraised of everything. The board provides feedback on budgets and different ideas to both fundraise and cuts to make. And we work with staff on development. We work with staff at the school on development, and we spent our last meeting discussing different ideas for fundraising and development. And we intend to remain closely involved throughout the entire process.
And so what's the board's understanding of the FCAP and the targets that are required to be met?
I think I'm confused about the question.
So what's the board's understanding of the FCAP and the targets that need to be met under the FCAP?
I mean, aside from like what you put on the screen earlier?
No. So
I think I think our understanding is that we need to meet certain targets, or else, the school can't maintain its charter.
Okay. So are you all, maybe Monica, feel free to jump in and help. I understand, Courtney, you're the secretary. I understand. How are you all being informed of what's happening? Because I think, as you heard board member Salmon say just when we started, we understand how you got here. Like, we understand you opened at a really rough time. You did all the right things. You've not had fiscal mismanagement, right? This is a matter of enrollment. It's a matter of being overhoused, having larger population. We understand all of those. I'm trying to understand what the board holds the charter. And so I'm just trying to understand what the board itself understands about what the school must do at each of these stages and how you're supporting. Like, do you all talk about it at the monthly board meetings? Are you going through it? Is this something that is talked about bi-weekly with Monica and maybe with the board chair? Monica, maybe that's what you talk about with your board chair on a regular basis, your treasurer. How are you all informed about it?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. So yeah, we talk about this at every meeting, which our meetings happen monthly. And then I believe Latoya meets more frequently, even our board chair with Monica, to make sure that she's apprised of everything and relays everything that's relevant to the rest of the board to us at our monthly meeting.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Board Member Rodriguez, did you have a question?
Just a small thing. Well, first of all, just echo what's been said about the importance of, as a former charter LEA board member myself, the importance of that oversight role that you all are going to be playing, as thinking about that month to month, and as well the plan where I think we don't have a lot of margin for error, I think is a thing that we're all seeing and looking at here. A question for Will, and this is actually just partly to put it on the record. We had an FCAP earlier this year. It was with a very different situation with Eagle Academy. And while that FCAP didn't end up being something where, that was what caused the school to close, part of it was seeing the writing on the wall that they weren't going to meet it. And I think that would be a fair characterization of it. And so I just wanted to say for the record, my understanding is it's what Treasurer Wright says. This is not about fiscal mismanagement, which is what the situation was there. It is about a tough situation that you all have to work to get out of. And that's one reason I think that our sort of tone and tenor here is different. And it's about making sure you have what you need in order to get out of this situation. But Will, I'm looking to you for sort of confirmation about those differences, like for the record, as we're looking at this FCAP and the one we had earlier this year.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Board Member Rodriguez. The situation with Capitol Village is about our concerns about their ongoing sustainability and viability. And an FCAP is a tool to explicitly identify for both the LEA itself, for the board, and for the public, places that staff believe, through our extensive relationship with the school and research, are the critical things that need to change to make this a sustainable existence. This is not about, at this time, about fiscal mismanagement.
Great. Thank you very much.
Board Member Davis, and then I think Board Member Stanley Beatty.
So Ms. Green, I just had a basic question. You're having to lay staff off. You're having to make some radical changes in order to ensure your viability. And I'm just wondering, like, how are you feeling as a leader? Do you feel supported? How's staff morale? Because in order to make it through, right, we need a very happy, healthy school leader, right, that can smile and keep on fighting. And so, it's just my question, like, how are you feeling about what's coming forward, or the future?
Thanks for that question. It's tough. It is definitely not what you envisioned when you were founding a school. It is not the days that we had to tell staff. It was not one of the days that we wanted to have to go through. But I'm a strong believer in things working out, especially when you are working with a community that is united towards something that is positive, which is our students. And, at Capitol Village, we serve a beautiful community, and we do a lot of really, really good work. And so I believe in that. So I think that that's one thing that really sustains me. I also have a huge village, of educational partners, funders, consultants. I want to thank the Alliance. Like I have definite folks that are supportive and looking out for me and what I need. I can always pick up the phone to call someone if I have a question, or if I am feeling stressed about something and like how I can handle this, or how I can go about, talking to this landlord or whatever it is. I have a strong, strong, strong community throughout DC that I can pick up the phone and talk to. And then additionally, my staff, You know, they are amazing. They are gung ho. Even those that had to leave, they're still in our corner, you know, looking for dollars and such. So myself, I am blessed, you know, and I am looking forward to just sort of telling the story of, you know, because you're not going to build anything and it's not going to just be super smooth and easy. We know that business is closed because of financial sustainability. So I'm just, as a school leader, single site, I want to make sure that we can show, you know, this story later, and it could be something really positive for the next person.
Thank you for that. Board Member Davis, Stan and Betty.
Yeah. Will, I just have one other question for you. And we've talked about this in committee and as a board, not formally, but for the purposes of the record. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about how the FCAP plays itself out as we see progress, hopefully, and in the unfortunate case if we don't see progress, because I agree with you, this is not fiscal mismanagement, but I want to be very clear, this is a question of fiscal viability, long-term fiscal viability. So I want to be clear about that. And in the face of that, talk about the FCAP as a tool, and if there isn't progress, how we work our way through steps.
I'm happy to share perspectives about how the FCAP is functions, and certainly will for Capitol Village. So, as a tool, the FCAP is articulating several, I believe 5 targets that we will be monitoring very closely. If you look at what I shared on the screen through the various stages, our oversight practice, like our frequency of touch points and the depth of our scrutiny increases with every stage. And at its core, that's what's evolving in each of the different stages of the oversight work for an LEA. And there's nothing different about the escalation of that with the FCAP. It identifies the frequency and the specific targets that we'll be looking at. For Capitol Village in particular, we have already begun routinely meeting with the LEA, and the FCAP states that we will continue to do so at least bi-weekly, and we'll report our findings out with the Finance Committee of PCSB's board at least quarterly, and as well. And so the over time, this FCAP goes through fiscal year 2028, and over time, we would expect the LEA to make improvements or progress in some form. And as you know, from a financial perspective, they may make progress in one area more quickly than another area. There's certainly room for that as an option here. And there's several paths that staff believe, and Director Green articulated, there are a handful of paths that could work out for this LEA to make progress on those those targets. The FCAP will maintain ongoing obligatory touch points for the school, even as their targets improve and they're become more sustainable and viable. The occupancy costs and the enrollment strategy are critical here, and can dramatically improve over the course of time what this school is experiencing financially. On the flip side, of course, if things do not go the way that we all hope will go for Capitol Village or any other school on an FCAP, there are several articulated critical touch points that are noted in the FCAP connected to the specific targets. And there are other natural targets that are not necessary to be articulated in this FCAP that are a part of our oversight practices for all of the LEAs. At each of those touch points, there are opportunities for staff to evaluate the progress or lack of progress on for an LEA. If an LEA misses targets slightly, or they're off the mark a bit, we will continue our scrutiny. We will continue to elevate that to the Finance Committee, and we will continue to deepen our scrutiny as that goes along, as the relationship continues on. However, there is, of course, a world where they miss a target dramatically, and I think that that's an important part of the process too. We will be asking for progress updates routinely, regardless of how far off they are, and if a particular target is missed in a dramatic fashion, the FCAP gives us the ability to escalate our concerns dramatically quickly beyond just waiting until FY28 to say something has passed or failed. It does not need to end with a finality of a pass fail experience. So the other thing that I think is important to note, well, let me pause there. So if something dramatic happens that is especially concerning alongside one of the targets, of course, the most extreme version of that would begin the process of recommending a charter revocation, and so that's the most extreme version. And there are several other things that could happen in between there. We could introduce an additional target. We could introduce, more stringent things on our already articulated targets to kickstart deeper, faster cuts or actions. So there are a handful of tools at our resources that we could utilize there. The other piece of the puzzle that I think is important to note is that the FCAP now exists, and in our normal oversight practices, any LEA has reviews of their charter frequently, and that will be a natural touch point for a report out for the board to hear about what's happening with the progress of the FCAP. That is in and of itself a natural milestone to connect on the oversight work and what's happening there outside of the most obvious touch point at the end of FY28 and each year in between.
Excuse me, just to put a finer point on your question, Board Member Stanley Beatty, everything that Will said about the FCAP is true. And unlike other schools that have gone through FCAPs, this one is happening at a time when the school is also soon to be up for review. So at the point of review for any school, we also assess the school's financial health, where we examine any of the issues before us for the school. In particular, if a school has an FCAP, that will be taken into consideration at the point of review. And much like we have the authority at any time, if we find a school that is not financially viable, if they are subject to financial mismanagement, or if I'm not going to get the exact wording right, but experience non-adherence to GAP, those are all factors that would be cause for us to make a staff recommendation for revocation. So in addition to the FCAP, we hope that the school will be in a position such that they are able to have a positive financial review at the time of their overall charter review. But if they are not, that will be taken into consideration at that time. And if they are in a positive review, as Will mentioned, the FCAP will continue even after the approval of the school's continuance.
Thank you for that. That's a very good point. And then I just have two other questions, Will, for the purposes of the record. So as it relates to the FCAP, you set the targets based on a budget that is submitted to you by the LEA, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And then once the FCAP is set and established and approved by the board, can those targets then change later?
Absolutely. If something could change that would ask where we would recommend an update to a target. Absolutely. And I think it's important to note that there are several things that could contribute to that, and especially to increase the rigor of a target. And if an LEA is missing a target just at a small level, we might want to see kickstart more action there. So we could do that and change that if we so recommended.
And if you wanted to change a target, that process would be to come back before the board?
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. And then my last question, and then I'm done. We spoke about the sort of a natural touch point for this LEA would be the charter review. For the purposes of the record, when does that happen for this LEA?
It will happen in the spring, in particular, and I believe we have not fully fleshed out the exact calendar for all of the LEAs. There are several in this cycle. There's one other item that I left out. I think it's important to note that anything not connected to the FCAP could go awry for an LEA, and we would continue to go through our process. That could be information that gets added to the challenges within LEAs, or it could create a scenario where we would recommend an additional target. So again, Capital Village in particular is regarding future sustainability, but I suppose in theory, there could be a mismanagement concern that arises. That would be different and apart from this, but would not disallow us to utilize that as a concerning behavior or additional scrutiny that we would, again, might decide to bring a notice or an additional target to the board.
Thank you.
Secretary Adolfanian.
Thank you. And good evening, Capital Village team again. Ms. Green, I could imagine, again, having to make these cuts. Not only is it tough, but for your families that started with you and started with the promises of what type of programmatic offerings you'd have, these cuts is something that they notice. Can you talk to me a little bit about what communication has been like with families about the cuts to the program, if any at all, or even the FCAP at all?
I'm so sorry. I'm going to need you to repeat that last part of that question. I'm getting like some stability issues. What I will say is that I did hear you say, the cuts are tough, especially for, the students and also the families that started with.
Yes, right. So the families that you recruited, your founding families, and they came with the promise of your program and all that it would offer. Given now that you've had to make those cuts, can I hear a little bit from you around what communication has been like to families about the cuts and what communication has been like about the FCAP, if at all?
We definitely let parents know very early on, well, as soon as we could, that there were staffing cuts that had to be made. And then we involve families as well in any solutions that they may have, whether it's, helping us with the building, helping us support in our campaign. So we try to make sure that we provide an opportunity for families to support. Our families are, although there's not, I think there's like one more class of founding students at this point. Our families, both our alumni as well as those that are here, are very vocal. They let me know if they have issues. They definitely let me know how, the changes to the staffing has affected, their student and them. I try to try to keep a very open office, open cell phone for folks that have concerns. But I think in whole, our community trusts our school and trusts us to make the appropriate choices. We didn't share details of the financial corrective action plan with families. That's something that the board and I have been working on.
I'm sorry, the last part, that's something you and the board have
The
been.
board and I have been working on. It has not
Gotcha.
been something that we've shared with the families.
Okay, thank you.
Treasurer Wright.
So my question was very similar to Secretary Adefania. And so what is, given that this has happened tonight and recognizing that this is a lot and you are doing the best that you can right now, what is your plan to engage your community and inform them of what's, kind of what's happening and what your plan is? All the things that you've shared with us, even around the steps that you're taking to get back on track? What does that look like?
Well, yes, we've already started with the conversation around the cuts and just in general, around in that communication, I spoke about like enrollment challenges and spoke about facilities challenges because we do have parents that are very well connected and can support us in that area. We have monthly town halls, and normally they are led this year by another senior leader. So for November, I will be the one that will kind of facilitate that meeting. Well, we'll facilitate that meeting. And really, it's just like reviewing and updating our strategic plan and where we are in that, but also adding this additional layer of we need to get financially solvent. We need to make sure that by the end of the year, we're making this progress, and then also in the out years, and getting both our staff, who we already have gotten a lot of good feedback from, but our parents as well, their ideas that they may have that may support us in that effort. We have right now, we actually added a parent to a family because their children are involved as well, to our recruitment team. And so because they're well connected in the neighborhood and they're able to give a lot of ideas, but also just feel gung ho about the school and want the school to succeed. So that was something that came out of, conversations with our family around our enrollment efforts. So we'll just continue that. And as we have always done, our community really supports our mission, and they're the ones that can give us the most, information that we need. So we'll continue that effort. Does that answer your question?
It does, and that's what I wanted to hear. I think a lot of times we don't engage our families and keep them informed about what's happening around, and a lot of times we underestimate what that looks like for them to be involved and know what's going on. And we tend to cipher particularly, certain populations. So I want to make sure that you do empower your families and that they know what's going on and that they can be a support, right? Your name is Capital Village for a reason, and it takes a village. And so do not exclude your community and your families. So one, that they can be support, but they can also make decisions for themselves about what this looks like for them. But make sure you continue to engage them and speak to them. I'm really happy to hear that they will hear from you in November, particularly after a public meeting like this, right? And so that they have a level of assurance and they understand what you're doing. And particularly when it comes to enrollment, that they can be a voice for you and understand and share their story and their experience that they're having with other people for the school as well.
Thank you for that feedback.
Okay. Thank you, Capital Village team. Board members, I'm going to invite a motion.
I move to approve the financial corrective action plan for Capital Village Public Charter School.
A second.
Thank you, Secretary Adamafanian. Could we take a roll call?
Chair Cruzy,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sandman,
Aye.
Treasurer Wright,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez,
Aye.
Board Member Davis,
Aye.
and I am an aye.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Next on our agenda is a notice of concern, and for that, I will yield the floor to Michelle Gray, Director of School Equity and Effectiveness, to introduce the notice for Seed Public Charter School. And I'd also like to invite representatives from the school to provide remarks. There's quite a long list, so as everybody joins, let's please make sure we do a round of introductions of your name and your role.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Gray, and I'm a director in the School Performance Department. DC PCSB staff recommends that you issue a notice of concern to Seed Public Charter School for noncompliance with 1, federal and local special education law, and 2, DC PCSB policies. First, I'll summarize the instances of noncompliance with special education law. In July of 2024, DC PCSB staff began a special education audit of Seed Public Charter School to assess the school's compliance with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, also known as IDEA, and related DC municipal regulations. Staff found the school failed to hold manifestation determination meetings, or MDR meetings, for students with disabilities who were expelled or suspended for 10 or more days. MDR meetings are designed to determine whether a student's behavior is a manifestation of their disability or if it is a result of an insufficiently implemented individual education program or IEP. Staff also found that SEED PCS failed to provide related service trackers for at least 3 students with disabilities who are either expelled or suspended for 10 or more days. The absence of these service trackers suggests that the mandated services under IDEA were not provided, representing a compliance breach. Moreover, since there were no IEP meetings or MDR meetings held, there was no evidence that the school reviewed the student's IEP to determine if a change to the IEP was necessary. Next, I will summarize SEED PCS's noncompliance with DCPCSB's policy. SEED Public Charter School did not adhere to DCPCSB's data and document submission and verification policy. In February of 2024, DCPCSB staff found SEED Public Charter School did not report any expulsions in its year-to-date discipline data, despite corresponding enrollment data indicating that the school expelled 10 students. DCPCSB discussed this issue with the school in an effective organization meeting in April of 2024. In August 2024, DCPCSB staff found additional data discrepancies when it compared SEED PCS's validated school year 2023-24 discipline data to the suspension and expulsion data the school provided as part of the staff's special education audit. OSSI requested that the school correct the data by October 18th. But as of this writing, SEED Public Charter School has not done so. Similar instances of inaccurate data submission and verification, missed submission deadlines, and MDR meeting due process violations happened both in school year 2022-23 and in school year 2023 and 24. DCPCSB staff recommends lifting the notice of concern after SEED Public Charter School completes 4 steps. First, we ask that SEED revise its student and family handbook to align with federal and local special education requirements. 2, participate in OSSI's special education compliance trainings. 3, participate in a special education focused quality site review, or QSR, between February and May of 2025 to ensure the provision of special education services and support in inclusive environments. And 4, submit accurate discipline data to OSSI and DCPCSB. School representatives are here to answer any questions you may have.
Once the full group is on, could you please introduce everybody and your role?
Yeah, may I start? May I start?
Please.
Okay, good evening, Board of Trustees and members of the DC Public Charter Board staff and Executive Director, Dr. Michelle Walker Davis. My name is Rosen Hood, and I'm here this evening as head of school at the SEED Public Charter School of Washington, DC. I'd like to introduce and acknowledge those who are with me as a part of SEED DC. From our board, we have Deza Seeley, our board chair, Trustee Dr. Angelita Buckman, Trustee Robin Chait, and Trustee Huck O'Connor. Additionally, we have members of our senior leadership team, Marina Eisenberg and Anshay Toll. And I'm also grateful to our partners who are here, our legal counsel, Lauren Baum, and Michelle P&M, who we have hired as a special education consultant through Fairgreen. And Gabby Dixon is here on behalf of EdOps, which we have partnered with to improve and shift our data practices. I do have a statement. It is now
Do you have a presentation, please?
I just have a statement, yes.
Please.
All right. I started as head of school at CPCS in late August of 2023. Although I am new to Washington, new to this charter sector, and new to SEED, I am not new to public education. Over the last 30 years, I've been fortunate to work, serve, and lead in several states at levels from a classroom teacher role to an associate commissioner over innovation and strategic partnerships at the state level. After subbing, I was hired as a special education paraprofessional, waiting for a teaching position to open the following year. I fervently believe in the promise and potential of all students and our responsibility to foster an environment that provides them with the highest possibilities for success. I strongly believe in the mission and vision of SEED, as I believe high-quality educational opportunities are not a privilege, but a birthright. We are here this evening upon your request to discuss the recent special education audit findings and the potential issuance of a notice of concern. Like you, I am deeply committed to the experiences, opportunities, and outcomes of all scholars, and specifically in this case, our scholars with disabilities. I understand compliance is a critical component of a thriving special education program. I understand it is critical that we at SEED PCS follow DC municipal regulations related to IDEA, and that our documentation is accurate, timely, and submitted with precision. I am here this evening because this has not been the case per your findings in our most recent audit. We acknowledge there have been gaps in our processes. We have reviewed the documentation shared and understand DC PCSB's concerns around manifestation determination review meeting practices, missing trackers, and additionally, several situations where SEED held a reflection meeting in lieu of a manifestation determination review. Finally, the submission of inaccurate data has impacted our outcomes and effectiveness. Although our audit submission in July was extensive, it was incomplete as stated in your findings. This is unacceptable, and I am grateful this situation has afforded us the opportunity to strengthen, address, and enhance our practices with regards to special education compliance and protocols at SEED PCS. To ensure all information is documented, recorded, and executed in a timely fashion, we are utilizing PowerSchool special programs universally. This software tool has allowed us to house all documentation in a universal space, as is the expectation of both DC PCSB and OSSI. We understand this system allows our staff, specifically those responsible for all documentation connected to our students with disabilities population, to maintain complete and accurate files. Full use of this system has allowed us to address the audit findings around incomplete and inaccurate documentation. We are committed to ongoing training and regular internal audits of this system's use. At this time, all manifestation determination review meeting components are documented in special programs, as is the system utilized by OSSI. All required attendee signatures have been acquired and submitted per the documentation guidelines. We are utilizing an electronic checklist that is aligned with the requirements as outlined by DCMR. All meeting notes are completed and detailed and uploaded in PowerSchool. Equally important, we have an ongoing tabulation of total days of suspension accumulated so that we hold a time-bound MDR on the 10th or 11th day of its suspension. To ensure this is followed, when a student reaches 7 days, we denote this in our system. If a student is suspended for the same behavior multiple times, an MDR is scheduled and a team will convene. In August, we implemented OSSI's discipline tracker for both submission and validation as our primary template to ensure we are aligned with the expectations set forth by the State Department. This practice has enhanced our accountability measures, as this can be checked continuously to ensure accuracy and the timely submission of our disciplinary data. In order to effectively serve our students with disabilities and honor all aspects of the individualized education plans, we have evaluated the coordination of our staff in this arena. In order to bolster this area, we have hired an assistant director of student support services who has a strong background in special education. Her assignment is solely focused on our IEP population, the compliance aspect, and their experiences in and beyond the classroom. We have also contracted with Team ABA, whose scope of work includes an extensive listing of social, emotional, and psychological services. They also part of our testing. They are part of our MDRs, our IEPs, and our MDT meetings. We also have 4 full-time special education teachers. Currently, we have 1 opening. Those classrooms are covered by this assistant director until we fill that opening. We also have 4 dedicated aides for the students who require a dedicated aide per their IEP. And we are moving to include paraprofessionals in our fleet of special educators to expand their experience. We have also expanded our culture team in an attempt to meet the needs of scholars in the 24-hour, 5-day-a-week setting. We are grateful for the partnerships and collaboration that we have with, like I said, Michelle P&M, with the co-op, with Lauren Baum, and with Valerie Dragon. We have invested heavily in professional development through Unbound Ed. We have also required participation in all-day professional development around trauma-informed school-wide practices. And our next occasion is this next Monday, but to ensure that all staff has training around serving students of all different classifications effectively. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. I think we'll have a number of questions here, but I want to begin by making sure that everybody that was intended to be part of this presentation this evening has made it on. There's more than one Lauren Baum, so that could solve one of it. But I think there may be someone else who's on listening in.
Yeah.
Let's just do a quick check. You mentioned a few names. I think we're missing Gabby.
Vincina Allen. I think we're missing Vincina Allen.
And I'm Gabby. Not sure how I got duplicated as Lauren, but Gabby Dixon is here from EdOps.
Welcome, Gabby.
And just checking, Ms. Hood, is Leslie Poole joining your presentation too? Okay, thank you.
Vincina.
Oh, and Eric Benson is here. He is also a trustee.
And I think I heard Robert Chait
Mm-hmm.
is on or is not on.
She was on there.
I believe she's there.
Robin Chait, is that someone who should be joining you?
She's a board member. Yes, a trustee.
We don't have her in our attendee pool.
Yeah.
Okay, I sent her name.
I know she's listening in. I'm not sure if she's been able to
Oh, she can't get on.
get on as a panelist.
Ms. Hood, while this is going on, can you explain the roles of the staff members? You explained the board and the consultant, but staff, what are their roles?
Yes. Marina Eisenberg is our Senior Director of Operations. So she oversees our data practices, human resources, and IT and facilities. And then Anshay Toll is our Senior Director of Student Readiness and College Advising. So she oversees the day-to-day operations in the building.
Is the person who's over special education for your staff here? Is that person on screen?
No. We are shifting.
I'm going to open up.
So the new person you referred to, that's it, like isn't here yet? You mentioned recruiting a new assistant director, sorry.
Correct. She could not be with us. Yes, her name, she could not be with us.
Okay.
I apologize.
We have a number of questions, and I do want to make sure as part of that, we address some of the questions that were raised this evening during public comment. I'm going to open up to the floor to begin. Vice Chair Salmon.
I'd like to start with a couple of requests and questions from Michelle. My requests are that you follow up on the allegations that we heard earlier this evening from Dr. Mellon and Ms. Woodard, and that you be immediately responsive to any complaints you receive from students or families about students with disabilities not being served as they are required to be served under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. I have a couple of questions about the reporting obligation, the data reporting obligations. Will those reports be made monthly?
Yes, there are two verification dates during the year, but every month they're there to submit data to both us and OSSI.
My other question is about verification. What will you do to validate the accuracy of the data that you receive monthly? How long will that take you to do, and how will you go about it?
Well, I think because the two issues are together, both the accuracy of the data and also the special education issues. I think that as we are looking to see who is being entered in every month with the disciplinary data, that we also will require them to find out if these are students with disabilities as well. And so the way it was uncovered before was getting student level data sent directly to us from the school.
Thank you. My question is to the board, and I'll direct it to Ms. Seeley. I am deeply troubled by what the staff reports here. What I see is a multi-year pattern of violations of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and its implementing regulation regarding students with disabilities who are suspended or expelled. I also see very significant inaccuracies in data submission. I am dumbfounded that you could submit a report for a period during the last school year saying that you had had 0 expulsions when in fact you had 10 during that period. I don't know how that could happen. My perspective, my view is that you're on very thin ice. My question to Ms. Seeley and to the other board members is, are you aware of the seriousness of this situation? Are you aware that under DC Code Section 1802.13A1, our board can revoke a charter if a school has committed a violation of applicable law, including violations relating to the education of children with disabilities? That's what's happened here. What are you doing to get on top of this situation and to be sure that it's corrected immediately? My question is to the board. The board holds the charter. This is your oversight responsibility.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to come before you. We are very concerned and we're very aware. We are absolutely committed to making sure that these deficiencies are addressed and rectified. We have management has the full commitment of the board behind her. You heard some of what the school is doing to make sure that these inaccuracies are addressed, the resources that have been put behind it. The board is committed to using any resources it needs to addressing these issues. And we look forward to working with you to ensure that that's done.
Thank you. I can't emphasize enough how serious I think this situation is.
Chair Seeley, I think I'm hearing that not everybody could hear your response very well. Would you be so kind as to repeat that for us, please?
Yes, the board is fully committed to making sure that the issues identified in the audit and that we follow the law as we must, and that we are fully supportive of management doing everything in its power to do so. We're committed to that. You can see, I believe, from the resources that we have brought to bear on this, from the consultants, from the legal team, from the systems that are being put in place, that we are absolutely committed to ensuring that these problems are addressed and rectified.
Thank you. Board Member Rodriguez and then Chantal.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Hood, I just want to go back to something you said earlier. You said you talked a lot about the importance of compliance and the importance of meeting regulations. And I agree that's important, but I think we would also all agree that the actual point of this is around what happens to the students that are in your care.
Absolutely.
And the thing that I'm worried about here is you talked about correcting data, talked about correcting procedures, and that's all important. But if you told me that you then accurately report to us that you expelled 10 students last year, which is, as I understand it, disproportionately way more than happens at most LEAs, I think the question would be, is there a pattern of targeting special ed students for expulsion or suspension? You've been there a year, coming in from the outside. Did you find such a pattern? Did you find root causes? And if so, what are you doing about them?
So we had 4 IEP students dismissed last year total. I found so can I first say that I have made a number of staff changes. So we have completely changed our data arm. We brought in not only Marina Eisenberg, but in our meeting in April, I made a commitment and we did, and I had already discussed in March with EdOps. So to get that part right, in terms of student services and the student experience, we have brought in, I think it was growing an understanding around not only trauma-informed care, but really the individualized part of the IEP and everybody knowing it, not just being in the special education or student services division. But what does that look like for our culture team? We've doubled our culture team. What does that look like for every teacher? Because again, I'm in public education because of all students. So how do we create an environment at Seed that from Sunday evening when they arrive to Friday afternoon when they leave, we are servicing, because IEPs don't stop at 4, so different than a traditional school schedule. I found it critical after a year, after observing, how do we put things in place, not only in the daytime, but also in the afternoon and evening, so students have the supports necessary. We have students with some extremely high needs, which meant bringing in other staff. It does mean ongoing training for all staff. I can say that frankly and transparently that all staff, I do not believe coming out of where teachers come from are necessarily trained to deal with or handle or appropriately address all needs of IEP students at a variety of levels. They need to be, and we live here, so I need them to be not only in the academic setting, but in the student life setting. So ongoing training. I do think because of staff turnover, which is part of reality, not only in COVID, it's also part of turnover in charter and everywhere, but with COVID, that with many new people, when I came on, I found didn't necessarily have the training to know what are the best tactics and intersections and relations. How do you develop relationships with all students and that communicative piece? I also do not think we did as strong of a job of on the front end of the year, because I got here the week before the students, not to make excuses, but what does an IEP look like in our new scholars, right? So on the front end, that first 30-day review, what do we need to be doing upon their arrival, prior to their arrival, to make sure we are set to serve them, that we are aware of what their needs are, that we know what that will look like in our setting and our environment.
Thank you. What kind of scrutiny do you as head of school plan to apply to expulsion and suspension recommendations for special ed students and certainly and for all students?
Heavy scrutiny. I put a moratorium on all of that last year and had to come through my office as Lauren has worked with me and worked with actually us prior to my arrival, but since probably this time last year. And so I chose to put a moratorium and they had to go through me, just numbers. And so we're also being very specific and communicative, like fighting and physical violence, weapons, being really clear about what that is. We had 4 meetings for families and parents on the front end of this year, and we met with every grade level to tell them those expectations. I think that's vitally important. We published a hard copy of the handbook again, which hadn't happened in a couple of years. All of those pieces, so everybody is on the same page and knows. Also, I think there are incidents where we do have to take a break, especially because we live here. If there's some big altercation, how do we bring people back into the community in a successful way and work on that reintegration piece? But I absolutely have been involved and continue to be in the practices around discipline, restoration, reflection, and what we're doing in those areas.
Okay. I mean, what you're describing to me, and even just the people who are present here, it feels to me like an almost a turnaround situation, and one that should be treated with that level of care and scrutiny. I see you all nodding. I think that's what is warranted here from you all internally. I just got to tell you, I don't often make these things personal. I'm the parent of a special needs child, and I got to tell you, reading what was happening in these pages, it's like a parent's worst nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And I sincerely hope that you will take that seriously as you think about what needs to happen going forward. And I just want to echo what Vice Chair Sandman said. I think you all will understand this. Any complaint, any allegation needs immediate and I think strict scrutiny from this board. And so thank you, Ms. Gray, for your support in doing that. I think it's going to be vital. And for anyone who has that kind of, we need to make sure that people feel like they can speak out until the situation is resolved. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I want you to know that I too am deeply committed to open conversations. Many parents contact me via cell. I am very visible. I believe as educators, it is our responsibility to be communicative from the office through the classroom. That also is one of our initiatives this year. How much are we intersecting with our families? But I absolutely believe in the voice of, I too am a parent. I absolutely believe families have the right to talk to us about what's working, what's not working, and at any time question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Wright.
Hello, C team. So as you know, another board member and I actually came to the school after the last time we received complaints about seed and what was happening. I just want to completely underscore what Vice Chairman said. This is absolutely unacceptable. Seed is you are over 25 years old. You are one of the oldest LEAs in this city. And to not have this covered is unacceptable. And while I hear what Board Member Rodriguez is saying around turnaround, what I am looking at is data that shows that in each case where we brought this to you, at least 3 of you on this screen have been in those meetings that I've actually sat in when I was at an EOM meeting with at least 3 of you here on the screen right now where we brought up this exact issue in 2023. This issue came in 2022, 2023, and 2024. It is truly a multi-year pattern. And to in any way indicate because of change of leadership, every school in this country goes through leadership changes, goes through staff turnover. These are blatant and intentional decisions that are being made within your organization, and it is completely unacceptable. It is a violation of why we exist. And it is a complete disregard for the autonomy that you are given and the privilege that you are given to educate children. And again, I want to reiterate, I'm looking at names on here that have sat in these exact meetings. And even if you weren't in the meetings, I see where you were CC'd on the notices. So where the ball was dropped was definitely not on this end. And it is unacceptable that we are here again. Why weren't MDR meetings held? It is a basic first step when it comes to special education. You are an organization that is 26, 27 years old. Why weren't they held?
I will make no excuses. That's right.
It's unacceptable. Families choose you every day. And not only do they choose Seed for a day-to-day, they choose you to basically raise their children 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. And for you to falsify data or omit data, it is my understanding, talking to the staff, when we have reached out, you have just failed to respond, failed to provide. That is a violation. And I want to note for the record, I don't even just support a notice of concern. We should be doing something even stronger. And so I want to reiterate exactly what was said, Ms. Gray. I know the work that you're putting in around this. Anything, please elevate this to us immediately. We have an absolute obligation. This organization is way too old. Too many faces on here have had this conversation too many times about this issue. You have to get it right.
Board Member Stanley Beatty.
Thank you, Board Member Wright. I'll pick up where you left off. I actually had a pointed question for staff. So given what we've heard tonight, given the egregiousness of the behavior, given the pattern, and given, quite frankly, the violation of law, could you speak to why your recommendation is a notice of concern versus something more?
Yes, the recommendation is a notice of concern because with a notice of concern has requirements and expectations that the school must fulfill. And taking the time to think about what would show that they actually have the capacity to do what they're supposed to do in regards to their responsibilities for their students.
What do you mean show that they have the capacity? Explain that.
One of the things that Board Member Wright brought up was we've had board level effective organization meetings about this same issue. And it is and we've discussed it and talked about what they're going to do, how they're going to change the things. And then after it does not seem that they're following through. And so what I would like to see, because my thing is for the students who are there, I want to make sure that no other students' rights have been violated. And so the notice of concern brings with it, you must do these things. And at a closer scrutiny to determine if you have the capacity to do so. My belief is with all of the things that we have put in the notice in order to lift the concerns, if they can do that on a regular basis each and every month throughout the rest of the school year, it proves that they do have the capacity to do that. I do believe that it does not have to be, it's not just a commitment. Oh, I promise to do that, or there's no excuse, but we're going to do better. This is actually saying, well, you're going to do better. And if they cannot do better, then we can say, hey, we're only a couple of months in and there's already been a violation. And so then we can bring that up to the board to say, hey, already the notice of concern, the recommendations or the expectations to it have not been followed through. So that is why I wanted there to be a vehicle for the enhanced monitoring. So we can say, yes, we've given you the opportunity, all the resources that you need to have, you need to do what it is. And so now we're monitoring every month, then to say, nope, you do not have the capacity, and we can move forward with something different, with more stringent, what Vice Chairman Sandman talked about at the top of this segment.
And if there are additional violations, then the next step would be what?
I would recommend violations of law. I would
Yes.
recommend that we would proceed with charter revocation.
Okay. Thank you. And then my last question is, given that we know that there were violations of law, and we've talked about this off the dais, but I want to record it for the dais. Given that we know that there have been violations of law, do we have a duty to report?
We do have violations. The violations have been state level complaints or state level that OSSI does the compliance regulation. So we have notified them and OSSI follows up with them, which is one of the last things that I said in the script was if this is incorrect, if it was a mistake, or if it was, you validated incorrect data, this is the process for correcting that data. and they've given them times to do that and correct that data. And they have, when the time that we wrote these still had not met that timeline, haven't corrected the data.
Actually,
So
Sorry, did you want to clarify something?
oh, I did. Excuse me. We did not receive the most recent Aussie mailing, went to 3 wrong emails. I forwarded that, Teresa. Marina, could you speak to this just from the mailing piece? And we did correct it today.
Sure. Thank you for having me. What Rosen is referring to was a notice sent from PCSB on October 1st to 3 inaccurate email addresses for her, for myself, and for EdOps, who is our data specialist. All 3 email addresses were not on our all staff roster, and the information pulled was from previous submissions. So upon receiving it, we have responded to it and those are the 4 expulsions that Rosen just mentioned earlier today.
So on Friday, I received an email from Aussie saying, and I forwarded this to Ms. Kemp this afternoon, saying that they had the wrong email address for me and the others. They were rectifying that. This was the mailing. They were concerned I had not received other mailings from them this year, as they had an inaccurate email. They had DC, seedschooldc.org. And so I did forward that to Teresa, and that was rectified.
Thank you. I know we have a number of follow-up questions. Teresa, I'd just like to build on Board Member Stanley Beatty's question, just to clarify, as Will had talked us through during our previous segment about the FCAP, it looks like should this board approve the recommendation from staff for the notice of concern? Sounds like it looks like it takes place through this school year, so the next 7 months. And if something else were to happen, what would accelerate any other kind of action that we'd need to take? And then I know Secretary Adama-Fanian has some follow-up questions.
yes, I think that we're doing the closely monitoring with just the data piece of it every month, but we're also very closely monitoring the special education data as well. And what would happen is, once we were notified that this continued to be the case, we would bring that to the school performance committee and make sure that the board knew what was happening. And then staff would look at what the violation was, and then create a proposal for whatever the next step would be. And so the notice of concern is that last step. It's like this last opportunity to prove that you have the capacity to do what the law tells you to do. And I would just like to say, regarding the incorrect email address, those deadlines were the deadlines that was supposed to be followed through on. So the extension for the deadline is what they're referring to, that potentially potentially did not get to the people that it needed to get to, but it was already past the deadline. The incorrect data was already validated by Ms. Hood. So potentially they didn't read that last October 1st email, but the deadline for validating data had come and passed, and has been no correction.
Thank you. Secretary Adama-Fanian.
Thank you. I have 3 questions that are in 3 areas. One around board support. Secondly, around the role of the foundation in support of school and staff. And then the third one about culture. I'll actually start with board support. The board chair, Ms. Seeley, is it Deja Seeley? Is that her name? I'm sorry? Is that correct? Okay, very good. Treasurer Wright mentioned, thank you. Treasurer Wright mentioned that in earlier this year, she was a part of a school visit. I was with her, and I took very detailed notes around what folks said in terms of what was going on after concerns were raised, complaints were given. One of the things that was mentioned, and one of my colleagues on the dais asked, what is the board doing? How are you all engaging? But one of the things that I noted that was really important to me, it was said that the board is similar conversation here. The board is very supportive of the school, and that the head of school speaks to the board chair once a week. You all are fully engaged and are kept abreast. That was in May. Same complaints, same issues. Folks are just not happy with what's going on. We see the issues with the data. What are you prepared to do differently to support the school? Because whatever has been going on hasn't been working. And I wrote this down with the hopes that this would change, and here we are today. So to you, the board chair, Ms. Sealy, what's going to be different with your oversight and support? Because what's been happening hasn't been working.
We'll work more closely. With those
I'm sorry, I'm
that
having a hard time
certainly-
hearing you.
Sorry. We will work more closely and more regularly with those.
It's
and we
still,
will
I'm still
also-
struggling. I can't hear you.
Hold on. I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
That's
Can
better.
you hear me? Okay. We are completely committed to becoming more educated ourselves. We will undergo training. We are supporting everything that Rosen is doing in terms of training her staff and having the right staff on board to address the issues with systems. Much has been done since the findings were shared with us. And so we are fully engaged in making sure that we do whatever it is that we need to do. We're talking with the co-op who is bringing resources to bear. We are working hand in hand with our attorney, Lynn Baum, who is a specialist that we have been working with.
Miss Celia, it may help if you turn off your camera. That might
make
things easier.
Thanks. Is that better?
That's better.
Not really? Sorry, I'm just trying to shout. We are working with any number of people that we have brought on board recently to help us address this issue and any systems issues that we have. We are very willing to provide whatever financial resources are needed to bring on the appropriate consultants and staff. And we are very interested in talking with you as would be appropriate to ensure that we are meeting our obligations.
Again, I'm sorry, Ms. Celia, can you take out your earbuds? Perhaps that might help.
Okay, hold on. Okay, is this better?
Yeah, okay. From the top. Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
That's much better.
Okay. Is that better? Okay.
Yes.
We are, I'm not sure how much you heard and didn't hear, but the board is about to go through an audit of special ed and suspension data from the time that the audit findings. I'm sorry. Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay. Hold on one sec. Okay. So we are bringing in whatever resources we need to address these problems. We are training staff, we are training the board, we are bringing in technical people and consultants to make sure that, and to put in the systems that we need to have into place and to make sure that we are doing what we need to do. We are happy, would love to talk with you on a regular basis with staff and avail ourselves of the resources that are available. I think it was very helpful to have in the notice of concerns things that you would like to see us do in terms of training and education. We will certainly ensure that that is done, and we will certainly get you the materials that we need to get you and submit the documents that we need to get you in a timely and accurate fashion. on a month-by-month basis. I think we can only look at what happens going forward. I think we have a very deliberate plan in which we can show what it is that we are doing.
Okay. For now, I'll table that. My next question is around the foundation. What is the role of the foundation in supporting the school right now as you all work to turn this around?
And I think, is that question directed to Board Chair?
I don't, to whomever can answer. I'm not certain who can answer. Whomever can answer.
I can speak to the measures and the role they play in my regular operations. So we have a school support team that meets with me typically weekly. We have network success measures that are academic, social, emotional, college knowledge and advising connected to our pillars. Right now, they are also looking at Aspire so they can align. But that group predominantly comes in, they do talk to us about our MAP outcomes, our students, how they can help on a kind of external basis with us with the daily operations. Not daily operations, I'm sorry. How they can help us at a high level with like national or network success measures, our annual school review across the SEED network. So like I said, they meet with me weekly. They do provide some PD. When asked, we had a menu to choose from. They do some summer training.
So how are they supporting you with this issue?
In terms of, I feel like the figuring out the right data piece, I knew 6 months in, probably there's a data issue overall beyond special ed. And so working to figure out what we needed to do, I contacted, I believe it was through the Charter Alliance, had provided a couple options. I contacted Dan at EdOps and he said, okay, but you need a data person. So next it was to hire and find someone who was actually a data expert, understood the charter landscape to work with, and then partner in that data space. That wasn't really through the foundation. Marina, do you want to speak to any of that?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I was brought on in July of this year, so I've been with Seed for about 3 months now. And it was shared with me that there were a number of data challenges that they had experienced in the past year. And I would be supervising the data administrator who had been at Seed for the last 6 years, overseeing all these processes. I come from the charter world. I've been here in DC over 10 years, working at both adult serving and elementary serving schools in the data and operations area. So I was brought in to oversee the work he was doing. And within a short period of time, discovered a number of discrepancies, both in the data submissions that were done, but also additionally in just how the systems were set up, particularly our student information system, that being part of the biggest gaps probably that Seed has had for some time. Missing fields that would be mapped or accurately having data that could feed to OSCE. There were a number of mapping issues that they went through last year. So really working to not just fix processes, but also the technology that was not serving the school properly. So since then, the work that has been done has been to build in the compliance state fields that OSCE requires, that PCSB pulls from, to make sure that we are feeding accurate data directly from our student information system. We use PowerSchool just like OSCE uses, so that allows us to also feed data more directly to special programs and align a lot of the data tools that we're using. We have brought on a PowerSchool expert to be able to really reconfigure our entire platform. It hasn't been edited much since it was brought on in 2016 or 2015. So that has been a major shift in our ability just to produce more accurate data, to make the system really a space where data is stored instead of separate spreadsheets, as Rosen had mentioned, were used in prior years. And just aligning all of our uploads to be in the same format as the ones that OSSI and PCSB uses to make sure that we're feeding accurate data. So it's been both process, systems, and technology efforts that have gone into kind of revamping how SEED monitors data, stores data, and then shares data out.
Okay, thank you. My last question is around not necessarily culture. I'm guessing with respect to parent engagement. So really curious, have the parents been informed that their rights have been violated, their students' rights have been violated? And what has correction looked like around that?
I have met with parents when they've asked to meet. Some of the, Lauren, do you want to speak to any of that in terms of meetings we've had? And
I could say of at least one of the, I'm just pulling up the list, one of the students on the list of expelled students from last year, we actually had a separate settlement agreement with, so that parent did bring a due process complaint. We were able to resolve that through settlement before the audit. So at least one of them has been kind of rectified in that way. I would be happy to work with SEED to reach out to the other parents to figure out, remedies for those children as well. I don't know that there have been any specific conversations with them since the audit results.
Okay. Hearing this, Ms. Rosen, what are your thoughts off the cuff in terms of how to go about dealing with that?
I would have no problem contacting families. We know when I think about the 4 students who were dismissed, we did have, if it's accurate, forwarding where they had enrolled in school. I am equally interested in ensuring we have ongoing meetings with current families to ensure obviously the legality compliance part is up to us, but beyond that, their needs are met, that they understand they have a voice beyond an IEP meeting in terms of what the experience is at the school. And I do purpose to reach out to families, purpose to discuss with them outside of, if we have a negative situation outside of that, what can we do as a school to make sure we're meeting the needs of your student? How can we come together and make this a more positive setting as well as celebratory? But I think working with families, I did shift IEP meetings to Fridays is the goal moving forward, so that all staff who are part of that student's experience, including student life, so their RAs are part of those meetings. I wanted families to be able to have feedback from the total experience. And I wanted the meetings to be more than just the minimal number of participants, one gen ed, one. I wanted it to be a wraparound of the adults that serve the students.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Vincina Allen. I'm with the Seed Foundation. I'm the Chief Growth Officer. Many apologies. I'm not in a place where I can come off camera. I wanted to make sure I heard, and I'm so sorry, I'm not going to get your name right. You came to visit
yes.
the school. I want to make sure that your question was actually addressed. So Ms. Hood, I think she did a good job of sharing the kind of support that the foundation is giving. She is meeting weekly with senior members of the leadership team, the school support team. She has wraparound support from the network leadership team. And I think, we're in this situation where there are some things that we're discovering, and we recognize that we're going to have to go deeper into the weeds. Having the consultants here, we don't have online today the co-op, but we're learning more about the kind of support that they can provide. We are very prepared to provide more direct service if need be. And in this case, we believe there is a great need. So I just want to make sure that everyone is clear that Ms. Hood is engaged in not only conversations, but strategic planning sessions, data review sessions with not only board members, but also senior leaders at the Seed Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Board Member Davis.
Thank you. I actually have a question for Ms. Dixon. She's a consultant, correct?
She's
So,
at up.
yes. So I'm curious, what is the scope of your work, Ms. Dixon?
Good evening. I'm actually a data team manager at EdOps. I work with secondary DC schools out of the 23 schools that we work with. But I don't work directly with Power School and the data reporting at Seed. I manage, I facilitate and support the specialist who does. So I attend some meetings, weekly meetings that specialist has with Seed. I'm included pretty much on all the correspondence that goes on. In EdOps, we have a team meeting on Fridays, so I kind of supervise the weekly compliance memos that specialist sends out to Marina. I do quality reviews on the data reports that she sends. Also, when we help Ms. Eisenberg and Rosen prepare for metric calculation confirmation and PCSB accountability demographic validation. One of the big things we do at EdOps, when those deadlines come up, we actually pull all of the data. We have our own workbook, we verify it and look for sources of truth and let them know what we're seeing. It matches up or it doesn't. You're good to certify, or maybe here's some discrepancies that we found. So that's my role, just supporting and supervising the person that works directly with Seed.
Thank you for that. And Ms. Eisenberg, in your comments, you spoke to systems and processing, systems issues, right? Like not having the right software, maybe not having the right spreadsheets, not being able to use the spreadsheets effectively, not having the right categories and cells that accurately, capture the information that you needed. But as I listen very intently to everyone, it sounds as if there is more than just a systems issue, that there is a deeply troubling culture issue, one that maybe says that we can expel our way to a better school. And I'm curious, Ms. Hood, you talked a little bit about the transitions and moving in a different direction. And I'm curious to know and understand your understandings of the culture that you are a part of, and more so, how does the board, does the board have a sense of the culture that you're kind of pushing against? Because, as my colleague Nick said, like, this is a turnaround situation, right? You have to turn that culture totally around, and it sounds like it's so entrenched. Can you speak to that a little bit, please?
So culture, I mean, we all know is the foundation of a school community. So when you are shifting culture and growing culture, I think a lot of my first year has been assessing who's willing to shift, where do we need to make shifts, and then how do we continually push on what we are seeking. And so we have done and will continue to do a great deal of culture work. It absolutely is our most significant lever and our greatest challenge. You are right. And so adult culture, I think, constantly bringing in from the outside, people who understand a thriving culture is focused on, for instance, what behaviors we want to see, how do you celebrate students who are doing what we want students to do? How do we mimic or demonstrate that to students? And then when a student has an adverse behavior, how is our response one that helps him or her or them grow as opposed to just removing? And this is not a weed out culture. I'm not about weeding out. And we are balancing some safety challenges. So because, like I said, this is a boarding school, we are here overnight. I have looked at what do we need and who do we need to grow on a culture team and constantly training them. For instance, we were looking at we briefly had increased security, and then we said, how could we have people internally who understand and know our students and can build a rapport with them, be additional people on our staff as opposed to outside security, knowing that ultimately it's about safety and it's about decision-making. So building culture is, we all know this, an arduous task. It is our number one lever at Seed, absolutely. And it did involve shifting. It did involve having changes in our staffing. So some people not returning in our new hiring, which was a big, I want to say risk. I mean, we had 52 openings. So we brought back 38, 39% of the teaching staff, and we know what environment we're in terms of needing teachers. And I still thought it was important enough to risk that and then look for people who they cannot be hired without coming through my office. We had all of the pieces you need, competency, all of the interview. And then I wanted to see, because I wanted to hear their mentality about young people. So how we have ongoing conversations about young people, how you see young people, how you intersect, but really looking for people when we have openings that buy into that and understand. And I do think that we have increased that number and improved in that area in the 24-25 school year. But it is an ongoing challenge and charge that we address daily, that we talk about that my expectation of senior leadership is that among their team, they are constantly working on growing culture, thinking of PDs, not only staff-wide, but among their team, and how you think about and see young people. Enrollment is a great example. How do we recruit? How do we give opportunities for people to see all Seed has to offer? Which is why we went back to the week-long orientation. It was to give families an opportunity and students to really be part of it as opposed to just 24 hours. And right now we're looking at what can we do to build on 8th graders across the city to let them know what we have to offer. But you need to bring them in and then constantly speak to the development of that culture. That culture is student-centered. That culture gives grace. That culture is focused on what are the outcomes that will take them to their highest heights beyond that, and how are we who we say we are in our mission and vision.
And my last question is, are you seeing more are you dealing with more behavior outside of the school hours? Like, so during the evening portion, or are you seeing more behaviors during the day portion? If my question makes sense.
Yes, it does. I don't necessarily think there's more in either setting. I think one might conclude there'd be more in the evening, but we have structured the evening this year. So really they are scheduled from when they leave their dorm, 8:10 or 8:30, depending on which breakfast assignment, till 8:30 at night. So one thing I wanted to do in this new year is make sure the evening was structured, not just to avoid conflict, but because that's what we're doing. So everybody has a structured study hall, right? Everybody is part of an additional activity, that we have time in the dorm, that we have time for tutoring, time for partnerships, but that it's structured. And we try to put the attendance in, and we're going to empower school. So you're actually accounting for where they are at all times. In structured activities, which is why they've joined us, right? So I always remind staff, well, they could do this at home, then what's the purpose of staying with us? So putting those things back in place. I think it's probably equal in terms of the conflict. We have had conflict. We do have We have worked to address it immediately and really keep it to 2 people. And I think we've done a good job with that. We are now, as we go into Q2, looking at what's the next phase of that. Now that we've said you cannot put your hands on people and here, what are we going to do next? To wrap around healing circles and different things. So I think it's 50-50 in terms of the number of situations day or night. But we've increased some of our safety protocols too for night. Bag check, security, metal detector, monitoring, some of the pieces that we do at night to enhance the safety piece.
Ms. Hood, I mentioned at the onset of this segment that I wanted to make sure that we address some of the comments that were made during the public comment portion of tonight. Did you have a chance to hear those?
Yes.
So some of the examples that came up sounded pretty egregious. I heard something about vans dropping students off, counseling students out of school. Some of the most egregious accusations we hear about charter schools generally, and these were very specific. Can you please address them?
Yes, so in terms of, we will have a student who is leaving campus with the parent or guardian's permission. I do not believe in them walking off our campus for lots of reasons. I want to know that we have assisted them in getting to the address that is in Power School. I think that's our obligation. So if a parent's like, I can't come until whatever time, or I can't come at all, we will offer with 2 adults to transport them home. I would rather do that than an Uber because I don't necessarily know the Uber piece. That's the transportation piece. And we do transportation coming on Sundays and leaving on Fridays. That's one of the services we provide. We do not drop people off. We do not. I'm going to push back on that.
So are you unaware of the nature of the accusation? Sounded as though it was to dismiss students, to discourage them from being enrolled students.
Respectfully, that is grossly inaccurate. Grossly inaccurate. We have had a couple students who have arrived from what would be comparable, and Michelle or Lauren, you can correct me, to private placement prior to here, who were duplicatively enrolled here and still in that private placement and the front end of 9th grade, that we have had, and I can name them on one hand, conversation with parents to ensure they are in the best educational setting, but no, not to dismiss students. That is inaccurate. As is the enrollment piece. So data-wise, looking into enrollment, how do we increase? We've actually met with the Charter Alliance multiple times already to see what we can do to be more effective in our enrollment and in our information about the services we provide and what we have to offer, and just be more interactive in that situation. And so can we have parent town halls? We're talking about starting town halls, or we're going to, with different subsets, but with our parents to bring voice. And again, we haven't had PTA for several years starting that. But no, we are not dropping people off like that. That is inaccurate.
Okay, thank you for that. But I do think the staff will still be following up to make sure that the full nature of both of those comments are addressed. And then there was a third person who didn't make it on. We want to make sure that we understand what the nature of their comments were.
Okay.
Board members, do we have any additional questions? If we do not, then I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the issuance of a notice of a concern to Seed Public Charter School.
A second.
And Secretary Adamafani, I just want to note that Board Member Rodriguez is on the phone. We're taking that roll call vote.
Thank you. Chair Cruzy.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sandman.
Aye.
Treasurer Wright.
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty.
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez. Can
Aye.
you hear us? Oh, there you go. Okay.
I can hear you. Aye, thank you.
Okay. Board Member Davis.
Aye.
And I am an aye.
Okay, thank you. And then just to clarify, Michelle, will we be reporting back out on the status of this?
Yes, we'll be reporting back out on it monthly. I have weekly check-ins with Chief Sampson, and she will know every week, and so you'll get updates.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Seed School community, for being here with us tonight.
Thank you.
And if we could just note, Michelle, can we also make
Thank
sure,
you.
I mean, Michelle, sorry, that we get an update on what is currently outstanding, whatever we were just talking about with that October 1st date?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board members, next we will vote on the consent calendar. Would any board member like to remove an item from the calendar for further discussion or state a recusal for the record? If none, then I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve all items on the consent calendar.
I'll second. Thank you. Secretary Adamafanian.
Chair Cruzy,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sandman,
Aye.
Treasurer Wright,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez. I think I heard an aye. Okay.
Yes,
Board
aye.
Mem-
Sorry.
Nope, it's all right. Board Member Davis,
Aye.
and I am an aye.
Thank you. Is there any new business? Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the October 28th, 2024 board meeting.
Second.
Okay, one last roll call vote.
Chair Cruzy,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sandman,
Aye.
Treasurer Wright,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez,
Aye.
Board Member Davis,
Aye.
and I am an aye.
All right, thanks, everybody. Good night. Travel safely, Nick.